Chapter 132. Don't worry, the demons won't come again, Shining promised. Lone Moon looked up at the gate that was still floating in the air, then turned to look at the demonic chi that had not dissipated. Even if they don't come, what should we do next? They could not let the demonic chi surround the invincible sect forever. Shining frowned too. The smog was indeed a big problem. How about I get Little Black to come and ask? He should not have gone far. Little Black. What the hell? Wait, what are you doing? He was about to ask, but Shining had already turned to jump back through the gate. Before he could grab her, suddenly, a bolt of lightning fell from the sky, directly striking the huge gate of the demonic world in the air. With a loud bang, the whole gate suddenly collapsed. With a crash, it broke into pieces on the ground. Huge black rocks fell down one by one. But the moment they landed, they turned into dust. The entrance to the demonic world disappeared. I Ching suddenly said. Everyone looked up. Sure enough, the big black hole at the door disappeared with the disappearance of the giant door. Even the gloomy sky suddenly became clear again. If not for the demonic chi that was still around the invincible sect, people could not help but wonder if the gate of the demonic world had really appeared before. What's going on? Did the demonic world destroy the entrance? Everyone was at a loss. No one knew what was going on. But the disappearance of the gate of the demonic world made everyone heave a sigh of relief. Only Shining looked up at a certain spot in the sky, frowning. That bolt of lightning. The gate of the demonic world was destroyed and even the entrance disappeared. But the demonic chi around the invincible sect could not be stuffed back into the demonic world. But the immortal chi in the sect was so thick that it was not enough to completely disperse the demonic chi. Lone Moon initially thought of moving, but soon discovered that because the demonic chi was too thick, all the disciples had to use all their strength to defend against the demonic chi to ensure that they would not be hurt. This way, over time, it stimulated their potential, and they were automatically in a state of movement. Because of this, many disciples' cultivation levels did not decrease but increased. Because he was supporting the formation, his cultivation level had also loosened. In just a few months, he had directly advanced from an earth immortal to a golden immortal. Therefore, he immediately changed his mind about moving. This was not demonic chi, it was simply a natural upgrade array. He directly modified the mountain guarding formation, completely isolating the demonic chi in the sect so that it only surrounded the sect. This way they could defend against external enemies and they could also use it as a training ground. When he had nothing to do, he would go in and level up in a masochistic manner. It was more useful than any training. This could be considered a blessing in disguise. The entire sect was no longer in a state of panic. Everyone was beaming with joy. The Bao father and son were not happy at all. Their son, grandson, whom they had painstakingly saved, had suddenly become Celestial Emperor Qin Go. Be it in terms of status or cultivation, he was several generations above them. Furthermore, they had a great-granddaughter now. It was hard for them to accept this in such a short period of time. The few of them had no intention of staying at Invincible Sect any longer. Once Ning Xian's injuries were more or less healed, they bade him farewell. Lone Moon politely sent the few of them down the mountain. Seeing that the atmosphere was obviously not as harmonious as when they first arrived, he did not ask any further questions. Brother Lone Moon, are you sure you don't want to follow us to Jingxing City? Bao Feiping looked up at the demonic chi around Invincible Sect that had yet to dissipate. He reminded Lone Moon worriedly, this is demonic chi after all, and we can't be sure if the gates to the demonic realm will appear again. Bao Feiping, who did not know what had happened to the demonic realm, looked very worried. Thank you for your kind intentions, City Lord. Lone Moon smiled. It is precisely because the gates to the demonic realm are unstable that our sect has to stay here. He had misunderstood previously. He did not expect Shining to be so powerful. He only regretted that he did not let Shining stay longer in the demonic realm. It was such a good opportunity, yet he did not manage to extort money from her. What a loss. He listened to her calling him daddy every day, yet she did not receive any of his teachings. So, your sect is really righteous. Bao Feiping, who had completely misunderstood the situation, sighed in admiration. He turned back to look at his son. His appearance had not changed, but his entire body was emitting thick immortal chi. Bao Feiping looked at Lone Moon with a complicated expression. He opened his mouth wanting to say something but stopped himself. City Lord, if you have something to say, just say it, Lone Moon said. Bao Feiping smiled and said, the matter regarding Celestial Emperor Qinggu is very important. Could you please keep it a secret for now? After all, the Celestial Emperor's cultivation has not fully recovered. He might have to stay with the Bao family for a period of time. He cannot reveal his identity. With that said, he added in a low voice, "This is the Celestial Emperor's wish. Brother Lone Moon, you should understand." Lone Moon frowned. He was not happy with the threat in Bao Feiping's last sentence. However, seeing how worried Bao Feiping was, Lone Moon nodded and said, "Don't worry. Only Shining, I Ching and I know about this. We will not make it public." "Thank you, Brother Lone Moon." Bao Feiping heaved a sigh of relief and said goodbye once more. Then he turned and walked towards the three people behind him. He first bowed to Ningxin, then summoned his sword and flew away. Lone Moon looked at them awkwardly. He did not know what the Bao family was thinking. Were they happy to have someone to rely on? Or were they humiliated by being fooled by their superiors? After all, this was someone else's business. He did not think too much about it. After all, he would not have much contact with them in the future. Indeed, he should stay away from the male lead. Once the Bao family left, the entire Invincible sect began their daily cultivation routine. Lone Moon even drew up a detailed cultivation plan and watched over the disciples' cultivation every day. This was obviously effective. In just 2 short years, Yu Hong and Siyu had successfully become true Earth Immortals. Most of the other disciples also showed signs of forming immortal bones. Even Bitao was showing signs of breaking through to become a golden immortal. Just as the entire sect was working hard to level up, they received an unexpected piece of news from the capital city. Summoning order? Shining paused. What is it? It's from the capital city. Lone Moon threw a red token to I Ching and said, "It says you have to rush over within 3 days. Why, chef? How would I know?" Lone Moon was a little annoyed. This thing flew in on its own. It's not like you didn't see it. Maybe it's because he's a sword immortal and has just become a Stygian immortal, Bitao guessed. Chongzhen is considered a powerful country in the northern wilderness continent. There are not many exalted immortals there. Anyone who becomes an exalted immortal will be summoned to the capital city once. The immortal emperor will reward them. Although fellow immortal I Ching is not an exalted immortal, he is a sword immortal. He is not much weaker than an exalted immortal. So you mean he's summoned to be rewarded? Lone Moon paused. Then why now? Hasn't he been a Stygian immortal for more than 2 years? Maybe it's because Chu Shuang City discovered the gates to the demonic realm, Bitao continued. That's why he's only thinking about it now. Do you want to go? Shining looked at Chef. I Ching frowned, showing that he was not interested in receiving a reward. We have to go, great immortal. Bitao said anxiously. Otherwise, it would be disrespectful to His Majesty. Our sect is in Chongzhen's territory after all. If we offend the immortal emperor, I'm afraid nothing good will come out of it. Shining was a little annoyed. This is so troublesome. I can't even stay at home. Chapter 133. Shining and Lone Moon followed I Ching to Shangdu together. Although the teleportation array in the immortal realm was obviously of a much higher level than the one in the lower realm, they still spent a whole 3 days to rush from Invincible Sect to Shangdu, the capital of Chongzhen Nation. Compared to Chushuang City, Shangdu was obviously much bigger. This was a city built completely above the clouds. Between the clouds, there were all kinds of antique buildings, especially in the center. A huge palace floated high above all the other immortal palaces, dazzling with gold and jade. At the very front of the city stood a city gate so high that the top could not be seen. There were no guards at the gate, but there was a huge array in the middle, surrounded by dermic talismans shining with golden light. I Ching took out the summoning token. Instantly there was a flash of red light, and the token flew directly into the gate. The array in the gate began to dim, revealing a passage. The three walked in directly. The moment they stepped through the gate, the scenery in front of them changed. Immediately, more immortal palaces appeared. The surroundings were filled with fog and auspicious clouds. There were white immortal palaces everywhere, and from time to time, the cries of immortal cranes could be heard. Between the immortal palaces there was a white jade staircase. Each step floated independently and many immortals stood on it, moving on their own. Even the random plants growing by the side of the road were rare spirit flowers and rare herbs in the lower realm. They had just stood at the gate when an immortal in green flew towards them from afar. Lone Moon looked at him casually and found that he was actually a Stygian immortal. That person bowed respectfully to them and said, "May I ask which of the 3 of you is sword immortal I Ching?" The 3 of them paused, then thought of the token that flew in and understood. I Ching stepped forward. "I am. Fellow immortal I Ching." That person smiled and became even more polite. He stepped sideways and said, His Majesty has ordered me to wait here. Since fellow immortal is here, please follow me into War-Stopping Palace and pay your respects to His Majesty. So soon? I Ching was stunned. Wasn't this a normal summoning? The immortal emperor would actually meet him personally, and they had just entered the city. Not really soon. That person smiled even more kindly. I have been waiting here for fellow immortal for 3 days. 3 days. This time it wasn't just I Ching, even Lone Moon was confused and frowned subconsciously. It seemed like this immortal emperor held I Ching in high regard. Since that's the case, we'll wait for you in the city. Lone Moon handed him a transmission talisman. Come and find us after you come out. I Ching frowned and turned to Shining. Master, go ahead. Shining nodded. Only then did I Ching turn to look at the immortal receiving them. Please? The man nodded and led I Ching all the way to the dazzling golden and dazzling huge palace in the immortal palace. Let's find a place to stay first, then go to the city to take a look. Seeing that the two of them had gone far away, Lone Moon excitedly pointed to the city, his face full of eagerness. Suddenly recalling something, he instructed, "You stay close to me, don't run around." Shining nodded. But in view of a certain someone's dark history of getting lost, Lone Moon thought about it and still grabbed her hand, pulling her all the way to a place that looked like a restaurant. First they got a private room. Seeing that it was almost noon, they ordered a table full of dishes. I don't know how long I Ching will take, you eat first. I'm going to the city to look for business opportunities, I'll be back soon. This time he came to Xanadu not just to accompany I Ching, but mainly for Invincible Sect. Ning Zian's appearance disrupted all his plans. His original plan to earn money naturally went up in smoke. Ever since the Bao family father and son went to the new city, they had sent those people over, but he really did not want to have anything to do with them, so he sent them back. Perhaps they also understood his intentions. These 2 years they did not come looking for him. So this time he came to Xanadu no matter what to find a way for Invincible Sect to earn money, otherwise they would really run out of food. If it were other immortal disciples it would be fine, but if it was Shining, that foodie, he could imagine that once they ran out of food she would turn around and turn the sky upside down. Listen, don't run around. Yes, Father Nyo. Looking at the table full of dishes, Shining was in a good mood and immediately started eating. It was not as good as chef's, but it was still not bad. The corner of Lone Moon's mouth twitched. Why did he have the illusion that in the entire sect, he was the only one worrying for nothing? For the 101st time, he regretted it for being blind to have boarded Xin Ying's pirate ship. Father Nyo was very good at doing business. He said he was going to look for business opportunities, and soon after he left, he settled it. Xin Ying had not even finished eating when she saw him from afar, leading a round, jade-like, very affluent immortal. The two walked in, talking and laughing, looking as if they were going to become sworn brothers in the next second. This is? The round immortal walked straight in, and saw Xin Ying at the table with a piece of meat in her hand, stunned. The corner of Lone Moon's mouth twitched as if he had just remembered Xin Ying and had to explain, "Xin Ying, my sect master." He said the last 2 words very softly. "So it's Sect Master Shen, it's an honor to meet you." The immortal immediately cupped his fists and bowed. Xin Ying returned a smile and gave Father Nyo a push. "Who is this?" "This is Exalted Immortal Xu Jiang, still the most famous alchemy immortal in Upper Capital City, a high-level alchemist. Half of the high-level immortal pills in Chonglan Nation's immortal cities come from his hands." Lone Moon smiled brightly, and then sent a voice transmission to Xin Ying, the richest man in the city. Oh. Xin Ying understood immediately. Father Nyo was indeed worthy of being called back by the richest man in just an hour, and an exalted immortal at that. "Brother Lone Moon, you praise me too much." Xu Jiang smiled and said, "It's fate that we met. If there's anything you need me for in the future, just let me know." "It's just that." Something flashed in his eyes and he looked at Xin Ying and said vaguely, "I wonder if what fellow immortal said just now is true? Brother Xu is talking about that sacred ground?" "Of course it's true." Seeing that Xu Jiang was not afraid of Xin Ying, he asked directly, "Is there really such a magical place?" Lone Moon nodded hard and said, "Didn't I bring Brother Xu here to verify this matter? If you're worried, why don't we start now?" His face lit up and he seemed to have thought of something. "Brother Lone Moon, please wait." Suddenly he took out a white Dharma artifact that looked like a bell and placed it on the table. Immediately a white light flashed from the bell. A moment later, a transparent barrier surrounded the entire private room. The commotion outside instantly quietened down. "I know that Brother Lone Moon trusts me, but this matter is very important. it's better to be careful. Brother Shu is really thoughtful. Lone Moon nodded and then took out a talisman. This is it. Isn't this a spirit transmission talisman? Chapter 134. That's right. Lone Moon stopped smiling and said anxiously, that holy land is located far away and it's extremely dangerous. I'm afraid it won't be easy for me to enter with my real body. If Brother Shu trusts me, you can split your divine sense and I will use this talisman to send you in. Shu Jiang hesitated for a moment, a look of struggle flashed across his face, but after a while he gritted his teeth and nodded. I believe Brother Lone Moon, let's begin. With that said, he stood up and moved the chair away, closing his eyes and sitting cross-legged on the ground. Not long after, a shadow suddenly appeared on his body, and his divine sense left his body. Lone Moon smiled as he stepped forward and said, Brother Shu, remember, although that place is magical, it is also an illusory realm. An extremely terrifying scene will appear. Don't stay for too long. If you can't hold on any longer, just come back. Seeing him nod, Lone Moon directly activated the talisman in his hand and slapped it on the illusory figure. Instantly, Shu Jiang's illusory figure disappeared from the private room. Where did you send him? Shining asked casually as she ate. Lone Moon sat down calmly and poured himself a glass of water. I sent it to Invincible Sect. The one who prepared it said that it was sent to the foot of the mountain. Foot of the mountain? Shining paused and looked at him from the corner of her eyes. What did you trick him into? He took a sip of water and his eyes narrowed like a fox's. What do you mean by scam? I just told him that I found a holy land that could quickly improve his cultivation. Whether it was his skills, comprehension, or even his state of mind and divine sense, they could all be improved quickly. What sacred land? Why didn't she know that there was such a place at the foot of Invincible Sect's mountain? It's the devil chi. The demonic chi in Invincible Sect could indeed stimulate one's potential. It would be a waste not to use such a natural place to level up to earn money. I've already asked around. He's the richest person in Chongzhen. Half of the shops in the city belong to him. If we want to turn Invincible Sect into a high-end, grand, and luxurious place for cultivation, we can't do without his help. So, all you did was sell him some demonic chi? Was there anything Father Nyo couldn't sell? It was no wonder that he had spent half a day setting up an array formation at the foot of the mountain with Yu Hong and the rest. Is it because of this? This is marketing packaging. Do you understand packaging? Moreover, it was his divine sense that entered, not his body. There is no danger of demonic chi entering the body. Air? However, the demonic aura was so obvious. Wasn't he afraid that this person would see through the truth after coming out and find trouble with him? I won't. As if he knew what she was thinking, Lone Moon smiled slyly. Just as he was thinking, the person sitting on the ground suddenly shuddered and woke up abruptly. Lone Moon immediately walked over, only to see that his forehead was covered in cold sweat, and his face was so pale that there was not a trace of blood in it. Brother Lone Moon there? He grabbed Lone Moon frantically as if he wanted to say something. Brother Shu, don't be anxious. Lone Moon immediately interrupted him and resumed his expression of a profiteer. He smiled like a flower and said, the things you see in the Holy Land's illusion vary from person to person, but they are not real. Don't be anxious. Take a look at your divine sense and adjust your breath. Shu Jiang was taken aback. He took a deep breath, closed his eyes to regulate his breathing and began to look inside. The next moment, however, his eyes widened in surprise. My divine sense. He actually found that his divine sense was actually a little stronger than before. Although this change was very small, it was a miracle for him, whose cultivation had not improved in tens of thousands of years. The key was that he had just entered for less than a quarter of an hour. Shu Jiang's face was instantly filled with joy. As if unable to suppress the joy in his heart, he stood up and said excitedly, Brother Lone Moon was right. There is actually such a magical place in this world. I also came across this place by chance. The only bad thing is that this holy land can confuse people's minds. By the way, what did Brother Shu see in there just now? He asked deliberately. Shu Jiang stiffened, his eyes flashed and immediately changed the topic. Nothing? By the way, Lone Moon really wants to share this holy land with all the immortals? Of course. Lone Moon did not ask again. Another way to confuse the mind was to be trapped by mental demons. Anyone who had reached his level of cultivation would not easily admit to being affected by mental demons. That was why he dug a trap here from the beginning, to make everyone who entered think that the demonic chi they saw was just an illusion. so they would definitely not have any doubts about this. Seeing that he had convinced Xu Jiang, Lone Moon immediately entered into business mode and began to enthusiastically discuss the Holy Land development plan. Shining was dumbfounded. The two of them had already set a sky-high price for an ordinary spirit transmission talisman. Silently giving a thumbs up to someone's business skills, she continued to eat her own food. Sure enough, your father is your father. The world of the rich is so hard to understand. The two chatted directly until the sun set. Shining ate from lunch to afternoon tea and then to dinner. Only then did the two reach a preliminary cooperation plan. Lone Moon gave 10 spirit transmission talismans to Xu Jiang and arranged for a new batch of people to be tricked. Oh no, to enter the Holy Land to cultivate to enter after the auction 3 months later. To show his sincerity, Xu Jiang even paid a storage bag of supreme-grade immortal stones as a deposit. Shining did not know exactly how much, but seeing how Lone Moon added 3 dishes for her without saying anything, she guessed it was probably an astronomical figure that she could not imagine. Shining was planning to take advantage of Father Nyo's good mood to apply for a midnight snack when Chef, who had been gone for a day, finally returned. Master. Hey Chef. Shining waved her hand. He scanned the room and his gaze landed on Xu Jiang. Frowning, he asked, "This is? Why was there another little bitch?" "Greetings, fellow immortal." Xu Jiang smiled and took the initiative to greet him. "I am Xu Jiang. Exalted immortal." I Ching nodded. "What took you so long?" Lone Moon looked at the sky outside and realized that a day had passed unknowingly. "What happened to you in the immortal palace?" "Nothing." Seeming to have thought of something, I Ching frowned and said, "The immortal emperor wanted to give me Qinghan City. I rejected it." "What?" The corner of Lone Moon's mouth twitched. He did not expect the so-called reward to be an immortal city. The key was that he rejected it. This prodigal. Why did he work so hard to earn money for? Why did he suddenly give you an immortal city? Shining asked casually. Lone Moon paused and then reacted. That's right. There were many exalted immortals in Chonglan, but not all of them could become a city lord. What's more, I Ching was only a Stygian immortal. Why did he value him so much? It couldn't be that he took a liking to a talent like him at first sight, could it? Other things aside, Lone Moon knew I Ching's character. He was not a pleasing immortal. I don't know. I Ching shook his head and walked to Xin Ying's side. Habitually, he poured her a cup of tea and continued, "But he wants me to go to Yufeng Immortal Region in a month's time to participate in some big test." Yufeng Immortal Region sword seeking. As soon as he finished speaking, Xu Jiang suddenly exclaimed. His eyes widened as he looked at I Ching. You're a sword immortal? What did he mean? Xin Ying and Lone Moon both turned to look at Xu Jiang. Xu Jiang's face was full of excitement. He looked at I Ching with even more excitement than when he first emerged from the demonic qi. Fellow immortal was actually chosen by His Majesty to search for the sword. You're so lucky. What do you mean by searching for the sword? Xin Ying asked. Xu Jiang could not suppress the excitement in his heart. He took a deep breath and explained in a low voice, "Do the three of you know where Yufeng Immortal Region is?" Chapter 135. The Yulin Immortal Territory is an immortal mystic realm located in the outer immortal realm. Xu Jiang introduced it mysteriously. Legend has it that it was a land left behind by the divine race in ancient times. The environment inside is extremely dangerous, but there are many opportunities. Legend has it that the various celestial emperors found the 10 Directions divine weapon here. 10 Directions divine weapon? Lone Moon frowned. What's that? It's a creation treasure left behind by the ancient divine race after they split the heavens and split the earth. Xu Jiang explained. I heard that the reason why the 10 Directions celestial emperors could rule over an area was not only because they had the highest cultivation, but also because they had this divine weapon in their hands. Legend has it that these divine weapons have the power to split the heavens and split the earth. Then what about searching for the sword? I Ching asked. Oh, that's because although the 10 Directions divine weapon has already been found by the celestial emperors, legend has it that the divine weapon used by the god of creation to split the heavens, the six-joint sword, has been sleeping in this immortal territory, waiting for the fated one. Heaven-splitting divine weapon? Xin Ying paused. Is it to split the heavens? Xu Jiang nodded vigorously. Legend has it that the six-joint sword is indeed that powerful. It can split the heavens and split the realms. It's not impossible for it to travel through the 3 realms. Oh, that's not that difficult, is it? It's just opening a door. Lone Moon and I Ching's mouths twitched. They instantly recalled a certain someone's heroic feat of tearing the realm gate apart with her bare hands. Their curiosity towards a certain divine weapon plummeted to freezing point. Haha, what kind of lousy divine weapon could compare to a cheat? There was no need to go to this place at all. Aha, fellow immortal Shin must be joking. Shu Jiang, however, thought she was joking, and then he continued. Even though this Yulin immortal region is dangerous, there are countless rare and precious treasures within it. Even the rocks, forests, and soil that cover the ground are all high-grade materials for forging immortal artifacts. Perhaps any random rock on the roadside can be used to forge a 4th or 5th grade immortal weapon. It's rare to come across one in the immortal realm. Artifact refining. Go. You must go. Lone Moon patted I Ching's shoulder. I Ching, I think you've just ascended to the Stygian immortal stage and need more training. You must not miss this opportunity. Not going. I Ching rejected immediately and continued to pour more tea for the person beside him. This trip will take more than 3 months. It's too long. Master cannot be left alone. Who knows what other little cheese you will bring to snatch my master away. Lone Moon wanted to beat this crazy fan to death. Did she not know that the invincible sect lacked weapons the most now? Why didn't he have one? What a great opportunity. He gritted his teeth and turned to Shining. Can you control your disciple? But it's really too long. 3 months. Next month's food allowance will be doubled. Chef Father Nyo is right. Shining looked at I Ching seriously. For the sake of invincible sect, we cannot let go of this opportunity. I Ching, that's right. Lone Moon's eyes lit up as he continued, or maybe you can ask that immortal emperor to bring Shining and me along. I'm afraid that won't do. Before I Ching could speak, Shu Jiang spoke first. Brother Lone Moon, you don't know this. This Yulin immortal domain only opens once every 1,000 years. To enter you have to cross the Miao River. This river does not allow anything. Only one item can cross the river. Fellow immortal I Ching, the immortal emperor should have given this item to you, right? I Ching paused. As if remembering, he hurriedly took out a green leaf. He gave this to me when I entered the immortal palace. He said it was to congratulate me on becoming a Stygian immortal. That's it. Shu Jiang said with certainty. This is the winter spirit leaf. Only young Emperor Sun Shu of the Shangdong immortal abode in East Marsh has it. Shining glanced at the palm-sized leaf in his hand. It looked just like a big 4-leaf clover. It couldn't be fed to frogs. There was nothing special about it. Not only that, outside the Yulin immortal domain, there are huge groups of sword chi all year round. If one is not a sword immortal who has a deep understanding of sword intent, or if one's cultivation has reached the extreme of a celestial emperor, one cannot enter. He continued to explain. That's why His Majesty let sword immortals be the people searching for the sword. So that was it. That meant that they needed a pass. They could not go just because they wanted to. Brother Shu, that young Emperor Sun Shu, what is he like? Brother Lone Moon, don't be rash. Seeing that I Ching was not giving up, Shu Jiang continued to persuade him. Only sword immortals can enter the Yulin immortal domain. I am. What? He was actually a sword immortal too. When did sword immortals become so common? Then. He looked at Shining. It couldn't be such a coincidence, could it? Oh, you don't have to worry about her. He patted I Ching's shoulder confidently. Not to mention the fact that there's sword chi to block it, even if she doesn't block it, it would be bullying. Shu Jiang, I Ching, Shining. Son of AB***, East Marsh. The new partner, Shu Jiang, said that young Emperor Sun Shu was a strange person. Although he had long cultivated to the level of a young emperor, he lived alone in the most remote immortal abode in East Wilderness. He did not like to interact with others. He liked to plant flowers and plants, but they were not immortal herbs or herbs. He just liked it. When Lone Moon heard that, he realized that Sun Shu was an environmental immortal. So 5 days later, he and Shining stood outside the Shangdong immortal abode, holding a resentful radish in his hand. Little Missy, are you really going to abandon me? Radish's leaves looked like salted vegetables. It looked sad. No, Radish was born as a radish and died as your divination. Can you bear to let my pure body be tainted by others? Shining looked at it and sighed. I can bear to. It was a vegetable anyway. Radish. His heart hurt. Who's outside the abode? Suddenly, a voice sounded beside his ear, carrying with it a faint immortal pressure. Lone Moon felt his heart stop. He took a deep breath to ease the pressure. He stepped forward and said, I am Lone Moon, a sword cultivator from Invincible Sect. I am here to see young Emperor Sun. A sword cultivator? That person snorted coldly, full of disdain. Another person who is not afraid of death and wants to enter the immortal domain to find a sword. Come in. As soon as he finished speaking, the stone wall in front of him, which originally had the words Shangdong Immortal Abode written on it, suddenly opened to reveal a human-sized hole. Inside, immortal qi overflowed, faintly carrying the aura of plants. Only then did Lone Moon step forward. He pulled a certain someone who looked like she was about to fall asleep next to him and walked straight in. In the blink of an eye, the scene in front of them changed. A sea of flowers appeared, with all kinds of flowers blooming all over the ground. Not far away was a small building. The small building was not big, but it was built with white bamboo. It was sparkling and translucent, like a crystal palace. The immortal energy above it even made the small building shine with multicolored light. Could be said that it was quite flashy. Even more flashy was the person sitting on the lounge chair. He was dressed in a dazzling red robe, the long hem of his robe swaying on the ground like a red flower. His long hair reached the ground and was scattered behind his back. His robe was half open and his eyes were like silk. If not for the fact that his chest was flat and he was very much a man, Lone Moon would have called him a seductive slut. Sun Shu glanced at the person who entered, the disdain in his eyes growing. Greetings, young Emperor Sun. Lone Moon stepped forward and bowed politely. You're the sword immortal who came to ask for the winter spirit leaf? He suddenly laughed and turned around, causing a wave of red to appear on his robe. Looking at him from the front, he looked even more stunning. It was as if all the words in the world could not match his looks. Even the human-shaped radish in front of him did not have such a color. Shining, who was still sleeping at the side, took a step forward, her eyes widening. Lone Moon was shocked. He hurriedly pulled her back and said in a low voice, "Hey, don't be seduced by his beauty. We have serious matters to attend to." No. Shining blinked, still looking in that direction. I'm just curious. Curious about what? His robe? It's so long robe. It's not strange for a man to wear red robes, is it? Just as he was thinking, he heard Shining say, "It's so long, won't you step on it?" Ha! Just as she finished speaking, she saw the person on the other side stand up. You think the winter spirit leaf? Before he finished speaking, he suddenly stepped on his own robe. His body swayed and he fell forward heavily, smashing his face into the mud. Lone Moon, Shining, so why was he acting cool at home? Chapter 136. Sun Shu got up quickly. His expression changed and he stood up immediately. He tore off his clothes and tore them to shreds. He even stomped on the clothes to vent his anger. With a wave of his hand, another blue robe appeared and draped over him. But this time it did not have the long hem. Cough, what are you doing here? Oh yes, I don't give my winter spirit leaves to just anyone. He coughed and resumed his cold demeanor. It was as if the person who had just fallen was not him, if not for the fresh mud on his face. Lone Moon, Shining, that? Young Emperor Sun. Father Niu was an experienced negotiator after all. He was the first to recover and put on a serious expression. We know that this is precious, but we heard that young Emperor Sun has always been generous. Besides, you are the only one who has this winter spirit leaf. That's why. When they saw that he was still unmoved, they immediately handed over the radish in their hands, which had a face full of resentment. I heard that young Emperor is the most elegant deity in the immortal realm. We inadvertently obtained a vegetation spirit, so we are most familiar with plants. As long as it stays here for 3 months, I guarantee that the plants in young Emperor's garden will become even more beautiful. Gggggg. The radish began to struggle as soon as he finished speaking. It did not want to stay here for 3 months. Vegetation spirit? Young Emperor Sun Shu glanced over and saw the radish in Lone Moon's hand. His expression was one of disgust. How can such an ugly weed be planted in my garden? Gggg. You're the ugly one. Your whole family is ugly. Lone Moon's mouth twitched. This Sun Shu was not only pretentious, he was also obsessed with appearances. After some thought, he shook the radish and said, "Radish, cooperate with me. Change back to your human form." The radish did become bigger, but not in human form. With a flash of white light, it turned from a small radish to a big radish. Lone Moon's hand became heavy. He lost his balance and almost knelt down. Shit. This stinky radish was only here for 3 months. Why was it throwing a tantrum? Do you believe that I will throw you to I Ching tonight and make you into stew? The radish was not threatened at all. It replied, "Pooey? Slowly it returned to its original size. Add more dishes for tonight. All right. Sun Shu wasn't interested in the vegetation spirit. He took out a fan from somewhere and with his muddy face still on, he said in a self-righteous manner, "You don't have to think of ways to please me. If you want this winter spirit leaf, you just have to follow my rules." He thought for a moment and with a flip of his palm, a white box appeared in his hand. With a wave of his hand, a small silver sword appeared in the box. It flew around the two of them and then flew back into the box in his hand. You want to enter the immortal domain because you are sword immortals and have a deeper understanding of sword arts. He raised the box in his hand and said, "The sword in this box is also a treasure. It is my weapon, a 10th grade immortal sword. This box was made of spirit-absorbing stones. If you have the ability, open this box and take out the sword inside and I will give you the winter spirit leaf. Otherwise, with your abilities, you will only die if you enter." With that said, he turned and waved his hand. Immediately, a tree about the height of 3 people appeared behind him. The tree was densely covered with the same 4-leaf clover that I Ching had in his hand. "Really?" Lonman's eyes lit up and he confirmed again. "I am a dignified young emperor. Why would I lie to a mere sword immortal like you?" Sun Shu did not think that the two of them would be able to open it. When he first arrived at the door, he had checked their cultivation level. One was at most an earth immortal, and the other was a golden immortal. Even exalted immortals could not open this 10th grade immortal artifact box. With that said, he waved his hand and the box flew in front of the two of them. Lone Moon caught it and understood what he was thinking. The spirit-absorbing stones were extremely sturdy and could block out immortal chi. In other words, the box could not be opened using immortal spells. It could only be opened by physical attacks. Given his cultivation level, there was no way he could open it. But he had a cheat. "Shining, take care of this box." He turned and handed the box to the person beside him. Shining might not have much else, but her physical attacks were definitely off the charts. Huh. Shining subconsciously took it. "How do I do that?" "Up to you. Just destroy it." "Oh." He thought for a moment, then added, "Just take out the..." Before he could finish speaking, there was a cracking sound. Shining tightened her grip, then loosened her grip. The supposedly indestructible spirit-absorbing box had turned into a pile of black ash, along with the immortal sword inside. "Take out what?" Shining finally heard him. She looked at the pile of ash in her palm. "Is it too late?" She should have said so earlier. "Sun Shu, Lone Moon, a while later, my 10th grade immortal sword." Sun Shu sucked in a breath, his eyes widening. "Father Nyo, what do we do?" Shining trembled. Why did the other side suddenly look like they were going to eat her up? "You're asking me." Lone Moon was about to vomit blood. "Why did you crush it for no reason? Didn't you ask me to destroy it?" "I didn't ask you to destroy the sword too, young emperor." You. Sun Shu roared. The fan in his hand instantly turned into a long sword. He glared at them with bloodshot eyes. Lone Moon felt his heart drop. "It's over. Shining, what do we do?" "Run." Liao Ying turned around and started running for her life. Lone Moon felt a gust of wind blow past his ear. Then he disappeared. "Holy shit. I'm going to kill you." Sun Shu raised his sword and flew toward him. "Damn you. You're such a disloyal person. You brought..." Before Lone Moon could finish speaking, the figure that had just disappeared flew back like a gust of wind. Just as Sun Shu's sword was about to hit him, the figure picked him up and ran out again. Sun Shu missed his target. He was so angry that his whole body was trembling. Yet he could not detect their auras. "You can run fast. Don't let me see." Before he could finish speaking, there was a whoosh. The two people from just now flew back again. This time, they passed him and rushed toward the front of the small building. They stopped, pulled up the tree, picked it up. Then, together with the winter spirit tree, they disappeared before his eyes again. Sun Shu, a while later, he only felt a pop in his head as if something had snapped. "You two little bastards, stop right there." Miao Shui River. I Ching, although this trip to Yufeng Immortal region is dangerous, it is also an opportunity for you. You have to do your best. Immortal Emperor Guyu smiled at the person in front of him. "If you can help me find the 6-joint sword, I will reward you handsomely." "Thank you, Immortal Emperor." I Ching glanced behind him. A moment later he looked away and said, "I'm entering this place to train. As for whether I can find the divine artifact or not, that depends on fate. I can't guarantee anything." Guyu's expression changed. He was a little annoyed that Lone Moon did not know what was good for him. A moment later, he recovered and said, "Of course." Looking at the sky, he urged, "It's getting late. You'd better leave as soon as possible." "Wait a little longer." I Ching was still looking at the road he came from, but he still did not see any familiar figure. He could not help but frown. He had clearly agreed to meet Master at this hour. Why was she not here yet? Could she have gotten lost again? Immortal Emperor Guyu could not stand Lone Moon's attitude. Not only had Lone Moon repeatedly rejected his rewards at the Immortal Palace, he even said that he would consult Master about going to the Immortal region. Although he had agreed, he had lingered at Miaoshui River for half a day. Guyu had been an Immortal Emperor for a long time. It had been a long time since anyone had dared to disrespect him. Could it be that he was afraid of reneging on his promise? He was about to give him a few words to remind him not to be so arrogant just because he was a sword immortal, but Lone Moon suddenly spoke. "Coming." What? Before Guyu could react, a figure flashed past him. The next moment, a strong gust of wind blew past him, covering his face with dust. Two figures appeared by the river. One was a man with a pale face that looked like he was about to vomit. The other was a woman in green. She was carrying a huge tree on her shoulder. The leaves on the tree looked a little familiar. Those were winter spirit leaves. An entire tree. Chapter 137. Master Dash, Chef. Shin Ing threw the tree into the water and pulled the two of them up. "Hurry up and start the boat. Let's go, let's go." "Master, what are you doing?" Blarg. Before he could finish, Lone Moon could not hold it in any longer. He hugged the floating tree trunk and vomited. This was the first time he realized that besides motion sickness, there was also running sickness. Shining ran way too fast. "There's no time to explain. Paddle, paddle." Shining urged. I Ching looked confused, but he obediently conjured a wind seal. The three of them floated towards the river. The three of them, who were standing on the same tree, floated to the middle of the river. A furious roar came from the riverbank. "You two rascals, don't run if you have the guts. Stop right there." A figure dressed in blue suddenly appeared on the riverbank. His immortal chi shocked even Guyu. His eyes widened in disbelief. Young Emperor Sun, how did you? Didn't he never leave the Shangdong immortal abode?" Sun Shu ignored him. Instead, he picked up a leaf that had fallen from the riverbank and conjured a spell. The leaf instantly grew bigger and he threw it into the water. It flew up and chased after the three of them. As he sailed the boat, he shouted, "Let's see where you can run to. Come back." "Guyu." What was going on? Holy shit. Lone Moon turned back to look. His face, which had been green from vomiting, paled instantly. How did they catch up so quickly? "Shining, how did you manage to shake them off?" He hurried I Ching. "Chef, hurry up, wind, don't stop. You're the one who kept telling me to slow down." Shining rolled her eyes. "Otherwise they would not have caught up." "Damn it, how can you call that running? That was clearly teleportation, okay?" Lone Moon felt like puking. He took a deep breath and said, "What's more, why did you uproot the entire tree for no reason?" "You were the one who said there was a tree. That's why I went back to uproot it." "Was I referring to the tree?" "I was referring to the leaves." "Next time, can't you listen to what I have to say first?" "You're blaming me for a slip of the tongue? Forget it, hurry up and help me row." Lone Moon nudged her. Hurry. We just have to enter Yufeng immortal territory. Only sword immortals can enter that place. You won't be able to catch up." As he spoke, he also formed a wind seal. Suddenly, a gust of wind swept past, and the entire tree was like an arrow that had been released from a bow. With a whoosh, it rushed towards the sword chi that filled the sky on the other side of the river. As long as he entered the Yufeng immortal territory, everything would be fine. As long as he entered, 5 minutes later, in Yufeng immortal realm. The three of them looked at the person in front of them, who was dressed in blue and had some dirt on his face, and was emitting a murderous aura. Lone Moon, Shining, I Ching, the scene was as quiet as a chicken. Ha. For all. Ngun girl flips table, you must be King kidding me? Why didn't anyone tell him that Sun Shu was also a sword immortal? Run, keep running. Sun Shu's coquettish face was filled with anger. His eyes were like knives stabbing at the three of them. "I've never seen such shameless people like you. Not only did they destroy his supreme-grade immortal sword, they even dared to uproot his winter spirit tree. If he did not skin them alive, he would not be called Sun Shu." Young Emperor Sun. If I said, we didn't uproot your tree on purpose, would you believe me? The corner of Lone Moon's mouth twitched as he laughed dryly. Sun Shu laughed coldly. It was as if there was a fire burning around him. If it were you, would you believe me? Heir? Lone Moon was stumped. He had no choice but to move the tree next to him a little. How about, we return the tree to you? Sun Shu's expression darkened even more. His smile grew colder. When I skin you alive, I will return the tree to you. This logic made so much sense that Lone Moon actually had nothing to say. But, all right, this is indeed our fault. We are not despicable people who dare not admit it. Lone Moon's voice deepened. He sighed deeply and bowed to the person opposite him. Young Emperor Sun, you should do whatever you want with this. It's best if you're willing to die. Sun Shu turned the sword in his hand and was about to attack. But, before we do this, there's something I have to make clear, Lone Moon suddenly interrupted. What is it? Lone Moon's expression tightened. He took a step to the side and pointed a finger behind him. She was the one who crushed the immortal sword. She was the one who uprooted the tree. Escaping was also her idea. Every debt has a debtor. If you want to settle the score, look for her. Thank you. With that, he took 5 or 6 steps back, revealing a dumbfounded Shining. Shining? Son of Abi *T. Sun Shu's anger was instantly focused on the person in front of him. He turned the sword in his hand and charged at Shining. All right. I'll deal with you first, you little bastard. Xin Ying's heart raced. She finally understood what it meant to betray one's teammates. A moment later, well, I say, Comrade Gardner, why can't we talk things over? Look, you were the one who asked me to crush the box. It's not of good quality. You can't blame me for that, can you? Shining sucked in a deep breath and said earnestly, and that tree, that was really a misunderstanding. There was a delay in my communication with Father Nyo. I didn't want to uproot you at first. If you're worried, I'll plant it back for you later, all right? We're all reasonable people. We won't bully you, don't you think? Sun Shu's mouth twitched. He gritted his teeth as if trying to suppress something. A moment later he said, Yes, that's right. Shining nodded in satisfaction. Then what about the immortal sword? Forget it. That tree? I planted it. All right, you're really a good person. Thank you for your understanding. Let's see, what can't we talk things over? Well, Now, can you move your foot away from my chest? By talking things over, you mean beating me up first? Damn you, he really thought he was going to die just now. Who the hell was this person? Her strength was too terrifying. He had no chance of fighting back at all. Oh. Shining finally retracted her foot. Looking at the man on the ground whose face was already swollen, she thought for a moment and reached out a hand. Come, let me help. What else do you want? Sun Shu's face paled. He retreated a few steps, afraid that she would strike him again. Shining? I just wanted to help him up. Was there a need to react so strongly? The two onlookers. That? Seeing that the matter had been resolved, Lone Moon finally recovered from the one-sided beating. He coughed and nudged Yi Qing, who was beside him. Aren't we looking for the sword? Where do we start? Indeed, there was nothing that could not be solved with a beating. If there was, then he would beat him up twice. Yi Qing looked up at the sky and took a step forward. It's already noon. I heard from Immortal Emperor Guyu that noon is when the Yang Qi is at its strongest. This is the safest time in Yufeng immortal territory. So. He turned around and scanned the crowd with a serious face. Master, are you hungry? Why don't we have lunch first before we set off? Lone Moon, Sun Shu, good chef. I like it. Chapter 138. This is a map of the immortal domain. The immortal emperor gave it to me before we set off. Yi Qing waved his hand to summon a map. Various regions were marked on it. Some were deserts, some were seas, and some were forests. But most of them were covered with sand and stones. But this is only a part of the immortal domain. No one knows how big it is. The places that are not marked on the map are places that no one has reached. Lone Moon looked at the map carefully and found that it was marked very clearly. Even what would appear in each place was marked out. Then did he tell you which direction to go? Yi Qing nodded and pointed to the center. He told me not to bother about the other places on the map. I was to follow the road in the center and head west. I was to get out of the map as soon as possible and go to places that no one has ever set foot in. What? Lone Moon hesitated. Wasn't it safer to go to these known places? Of course it's for the 6-joint sword. Sun Shu snorted. Almost everyone in the immortal realm has this map. Who knows how many sword immortals have been to these places? If there was a sword, it would have been found long ago. Naturally, we have to go somewhere else to look for it. This immortal emperor really cares about this sword? Come to think of it. Lone Moon frowned. He turned and glared at Sun Shu. Why are you still here? And he looked like he did not want to leave. Why can't I be here? Sun Shu's face flashed with panic. He immediately regained his composure and said confidently, although I, did forgive Shining, I did not forgive you. You have not explained to me about my immortal sword and the winter spirit tree. Don't try to deny it. Anyway, I will be following you for the next 3 months until you restore my precious winter spirit tree. He subconsciously glanced at a certain someone who was leisurely eating a pastry. Here. Lone Moon plucked the radish from his thigh and stuffed it into Sun Shu's hands. You put the radish, Pui, you plant this vegetation spirit beside the tree. I guarantee that not only one tree but even 100 trees will grow for you. The radish was the embodiment of vegetation spirit chi. As long as it was a plant, it would grow well beside it. Whether it was the lower realm or the immortal world. Rar rar rar. Radish jumped back from Sun Shu's arms. It shook its leaves in disgust and made a sound of disdain. Bah! Who would want to go back and plant trees with this ugly thing? No. Sun Shu was also dissatisfied with his perfunctory method. He flicked his silky hair and said, who knows if what you said is true or false? Before the tree is repaired, don't even think of escaping responsibility. With that said, he glanced at Shining again, intentionally or unintentionally. Besides, with that person's terrifying strength, perhaps. You want that sword too? Shining suddenly asked. Sun Shu jumped up in fright. His face turned pale and he looked as if he had been exposed. Who wants the 6-joint sword? It's just that I haven't been to the immortal region for too long and I'm bored. That's why I'm kind enough to accompany you to take a look. Otherwise you won't even know how you died. Shining stared at him for a while before saying, oh. She did not say that it was the 6-joint sword. Sun Shu, all right, we're full. It's time to set off. Since he was in the wrong, Lone Moon ignored Sun Shu. He stood up and dusted his robes. Let's go. Shining and I Ching stood up and summoned their immortal swords. They flew up on their swords and headed in the direction that Lone Moon had chosen. But it was not the path in the middle that the immortal emperor had instructed them to take. Sun Shu heaved a sigh of relief and chased after them on his sword. He had thought that although the immortal territory was vast, they would fly out of the area marked on the map in less than 3 days. For safety's sake, he had even personally set up a defensive array for them. He was afraid that something might happen to them once they reached the unknown area. But 5 days had passed, and they were still within the boundaries of the map. 10 days had passed, and they were still within the boundaries of the map. 15 days had passed and they were still, an entire month had passed, and they were still going around in circles on the map. Moreover, they were going back and forth repeatedly. They even specially chose the areas with strange rocks. Once they found a strange rock, they would fly down and only do one thing. Dig, dig, dig. When they found 10th level weapon refinement materials, they dug. When they found 8th level weapon refinement materials, they dug. When they found 6th level weapon refinement materials, they dug. When they found 2nd level weapon refinement materials, they dug. They watched helplessly as rocks that were as tall as humans were dug until not a single one was left. Even the land around them was not spared. Lone Moon, do you have any more storage bags? There's a 1st level moon crystal here. I Ching pointed to a rock at his feet and said, I have more than a dozen of them. Don't waste them. Yes. Lone Moon threw a bag over and instructed, hurry up and dig. If you don't have enough, I have more. He was already prepared. Enough. Sun Shu could not help but explode. He threw the immortal shovel in his hand onto the ground. How much longer are you going to dig for? Instead of looking for divine weapons, they came to dig for rocks. And why did they have to dig for him as well? Are you here to dig for weapon refinement materials or to look for swords? The 3 of them paused. Even Shining, who was sitting leisurely at the side and nibbling on a fruit, turned to look at them. The 3 of them paused, then replied in unison. We're here to dig for materials. 3 Sun Shu. They actually admitted it. What kind of place did they think this was? Our invincible sect is in urgent need of immortal weapons of various grades. Is there a problem? Lone Moon replied. Was it wrong for them to rely on their own abilities to get out of poverty? He was actually speechless. No, he could not let them continue digging like this. Otherwise there would be no land left in the immortal territory. He took a deep breath and his eyes darted around. Then he suppressed his impatience and stepped forward to persuade them. There's no point in digging here. Although only sword immortals can enter the immortal territory, there are already no good materials to be found in these outer areas. This kind of first-level and second-level weapon refinement materials are not hard to find outside. It's not hard to find them outside, so why do you have to look for them? All the high-grade materials were inside, not to mention the 10th-grade materials. Not to mention 10th-level materials, even supreme-grade materials like the Skyfire Stone, are not non-existent. Lone Moon looked around and thought about it carefully. Indeed, he found that the closer they got to the edge of the map, the rarer the materials they saw. Although he had always been cautious in doing things. But they were here to gain experience. It would not be right if they did not go in and try their luck. Moreover, after digging for so many days, they had almost all the materials they needed. It was time to set off. All right. Let's not care about these first and second level materials. Let's go. He waved his hand and the three of them mounted their swords and flew towards the unknown area. Sun Shu heaved a sigh of relief. He had finally convinced these money-grubbing people who would not even let go of rocks. After digging for so many days, he had almost forgotten how dangerous this place was. But very quickly he discovered another problem. Why did we stop here? Sun Shu looked ahead, then turned back to look at the few people who had suddenly stopped to rest. It's dark. I Ching took out a blanket and gently covered the person beside him. With a matter-of-fact expression, he said in a low voice, "It's time to sleep. Haven't you all become immortals? Rest my ass. Which immortal needs to sleep? Shining needs it." Lone Moon pointed to the person who had already fallen asleep. But she doesn't need to sleep for the whole night. No matter how tired she is, she just needs to rest for a few minutes, right? He looked dissatisfied. Don't forget that this immortal territory is only open for 3 months. No, we have to wake her up. No. The moment he got up, I Ching and Lone Moon flew forward at the same time and pressed him down. I Ching, we can't wake Master. Lone Moon, if you don't want to die. Sun Shu's heart tightened for no reason. What the hell? Just as he was thinking, the ground suddenly shook. Not far away, a roar pierced the night sky. Roar. Chapter 139. Between the originally neat and tidy mountain rocks, a blazing flame shot up into the sky. The ground began to shake violently. Almost reflexively, Lone Moon quickly conjured a series of hand seals. An array was formed in an instant. It turned into a transparent isolation array and enveloped the person on the ground. In the next moment, there was a series of crashing sounds as the mountain rocks rolled down. A huge object suddenly rushed out from the ground. Its entire body was burning with flames. It was as big as a mountain, covering the sky and sun. It opened its mouth and let out another angry roar. It was as if the entire world was shaking. Lone Moon and I Ching subconsciously turned to look at the person in the array behind them. Both of them heaved a sigh of relief. Fortunately, he reacted quickly. His voice could not pass through the isolation array. He did not wake up. What kind of beast is this? I Ching frowned. He had never seen a beast like this before. It was so big that he could not see it clearly, especially the flames surrounding its body. One look and one could tell that it was not an ordinary fire. The moment it appeared, the surroundings had already been scorched. Even immortals like them could feel the heat from such a distance. No, this is not a beast. Lone Moon's expression darkened. He pointed at the huge object that had already burned half the sky red. Quick, look inside the fire. I Ching subconsciously released his divine perception to take a closer look. He saw that the deviant flames were actually covered with layers of what looked like metal armor. There were faint talismans flashing inside, and something like a sequin was flashing continuously. This. Rather than saying it was a spirit beast, it was more like a weapon. But the sound just now was clearly that of a beast. Could it be? I Ching was shocked. Understanding dawned on him. He shouted, "It's an artifact spirit." This artifact had actually developed sentience. It was not easy for anything to become sentient. What's more, weapons were inanimate objects. Yet it could actually develop sentience. This proved that it was not ordinary to begin with. Perhaps it was a divine artifact. Why did we encounter it? This is the myriad sword box. Sun Shu raised his hand and set up a defensive array to block the raging flames. He shouted, "This is the artifact spirit guarding this place. Its original form is a divine artifact. This fire is the 9 underworld flames. Not even divine beings can withstand it, much less immortals. Ordinary water elemental immortal spells are completely useless against it. We can only attack it forcefully, especially when they're still. Before he could finish, there was a ringing sound. Thousands of immortal swords suddenly rushed out of the huge body wrapped in flames. Each of them carried a sharp sword chi, and the wind blades blotted out the sky as they attacked them. Myriad swords formation. Moreover, they were not condensed from immortal energy. Every single one of them was a real sword. I Ching's expression darkened. He activated all the immortal chi in his body and turned to Lone Moon. Look after Master. With that said, he flew up into the air. His sword chi turned into a dragon and rushed towards the sky full of sword chi. Got it? The corner of Lone Moon's mouth twitched and he took a few steps back. At the same time, he waved his sword to block the rain of swords that he did not manage to block in time. Not a single sword was allowed to enter the isolation array behind him. Wait, what are you doing? Sun Shu was stunned. He looked at the two of them anxiously. What time is it? You guys even protected her while she slept. This is the artifact spirit of a divine artifact, not the ordinary sword chi outside. You can't block it. Divine artifacts were powerful weapons. What's more, this one was sentient. Even the 10 celestial emperors would not be able to defeat it. We'd better wake Shining up quickly. Perhaps we can still win. As she spoke, she turned to walk towards the isolation array. Oh. Lone Moon's face paled. He turned the sword in his hand and a row of spirit swords appeared beside Sun Shu. Then he flew over and grabbed Sun Shu back. In a serious tone that he had never used before, he said, "Trust me, the consequences of waking her up are even more terrifying than that of an artifact spirit." What the hell? Sun Shu was stunned. Just as he was about to say something, the ground beneath his feet shook. A large number of immortal swords suddenly emerged from the ground and flew towards the direction behind them. Oh no. Lone Moon's heart skipped a beat. It was too late for him to turn around and block the immortal swords. He could only watch as the immortal swords emerged from the ground and destroyed the isolation array he had set up. That was not the end of it. The gigantic artifact spirit suddenly spat out a flame that forced I Ching to retreat. Then it turned around and lunged towards I Ching. It opened its huge mouth and bit down. Master! I Ching cried out in shock. However, he could only watch as the huge divine artifact swallowed Shining, who was behind him, along with a radius of more than 100 feet around her, with a rumble. All that was left was a scorched pit that was more than 10 feet wide. Roar! A loud roar reverberated through the night sky. Sun Shu, eaten? I Ching and Lone Moon's faces paled. It was as if they had been frozen in place. I told you, to wake her up. Sun Shu looked at the two of them sympathetically. Otherwise she wouldn't have run. Before he could finish speaking, Lone Moon suddenly shouted. He turned around and started running. At the same time, I Ching, who was still in midair, also ran on his sword. In a flash he disappeared. What was going on? Weren't they sad about their companion's death? Why were they running? Sun Shu was confused. He did not have time to react. All of a sudden, the artifact spirit in front of him shook. Then there was a loud rumble. It sounded like something was collapsing. The gigantic divine artifact, which was so tall that its top could not be seen, suddenly collapsed like a building that had been blown up. In an instant, it became a pile of scrap metal. The immortal swords that had filled the sky all fell to the ground like dumplings being thrown into a pot. With a loud tearing sound, the divine artifact on the ground suddenly split open. The divine artifact's original source, golden light, gushed out. From the center of the golden light, a person slowly walked out. Golden light filled the sky, accompanied by an angry roar. So noisy. As soon as he finished speaking, he felt something overwhelming pouncing on him, causing him to be unable to breathe. Killing intent. What a strong killing intent. Immense fear filled his entire body. His entire body turned cold. There was only one word left in his mind: die. Suddenly he understood why the two people reacted the way they did. He could only do the same thing now. Run. He used all the immortal chi in his body and rushed in the direction that the two people had disappeared. He used his cultivation to the maximum and almost instantly caught up with the two people's speed. He only hoped that he could make it. There was a flash of white light and a familiar figure appeared in front of the three people. The three people? That was way too fast. Shining stood there quietly. She was expressionless, but the three of them felt a chill in their hearts. She narrowed her eyes and looked straight at the person on the right. She reached out. I Ching shivered and pulled out a piece of barbecued meat. He shouted, "Master wants supper?" Her hand paused. She changed her target instantly and looked at the person beside her. "I have pastries. Do you want some?" Lone Moon immediately held out a bowl. Fortunately, he had secretly hidden a plate for dinner. Her hand paused again and reached out to the third person. "Sun Shu. Son of AB***. Wait, what are you doing? Wake up and look carefully. I'm Sun Shu. No. Help." Chapter 140. Early morning. When Shining woke up, Father Nyo and Chef were digging something in a pile of scrap metal. The more they dug, the more excited Father Nyo became. He smiled like a sunflower. "This thing is actually made of supreme-grade materials. Holy shit, this source is actually heavenly firestone. Keep it, keep it. I Ching, you still have storage bags, right? Hurry up and pack it. Pack as much as you can." Shining stretched lazily and waved a hand in greeting. "Good morning." The two who were picking up the scraps suddenly trembled and turned to look at her. There was an indescribable strangeness in their expressions. What's wrong? Why were they looking at her like that? Shining went forward and kicked the pile of rubbish. "What's this? Where did it come from? She didn't seem to be here last night." "Master, you're awake?" I Ching walked over and asked tentatively. She nodded subconsciously. "It came from underground," Lone Moon replied. "It's a divine artifact that has developed sentience. Although it's already destroyed, its materials can still be reused." Shining did not continue asking. She looked around and suddenly said, Where's the gardener? Why did he disappear? Did he go home to plant trees?" I Ching, Lone Moon, the two did not answer. They just looked at her strangely for a while. Then they looked down at her feet. "What's wrong?" Shining felt a little uncomfortable. "Why are you looking at me like that?" She subconsciously followed their gaze and looked down. "What's under my feet? Holy shit. Why was there really a person here? And he was stuck in a crack in the ground, the kind that was swollen like a ball." Shining squatted down and grabbed the person's collar. With a pull there was a sound. She pulled the person out like pulling a carrot. On a closer look, it was actually the gardener. "Why did you dig into the crack for no reason? Look at your swollen." Even if he wanted to cool down, he couldn't be like this. If not for that familiar blue robe, she wouldn't even recognize him. "I say, you, don't come over." Sun Shu instantly jumped up and retreated a few meters away. He raised his face that no longer had the slightest hint of coquettishness, and shrank back desperately. "Stay away from me, do you hear me? If you dare to come over, I will die in front of you." "Shining, what a terrifying threat, straight face, Chef." She nudged the person beside her and lowered her voice. "What's wrong with him? How did this happen all of a sudden?" "No, nothing." I Ching's mouth twitched. "Maybe. I didn't sleep well last night." He had been beaten up for an entire night for no reason. "Oh." Shining nodded. It would be a wonder if he could sleep well in a crack. She was about to ask for more details. Lone Moon suddenly said, "All right, that's enough. We're almost done." He glanced at Sun Shu, who could only be described as a coward, and added, "We'll set off once Sun Shu has recovered." Actually, Shining had only woken up for about 10 minutes last night before falling asleep again. However, perhaps because he had been beaten up so badly, Sun Shu refused to come out after being punched into the crack. Lone Moon and I Ching had wanted to help him, but he had panicked and even made a solemn vow. "I'm not coming out. You two rascals, don't try to trick me into coming out to get beaten up." He did not even dare to regulate his own breathing and forced himself to stay awake until Shining woke up. This psychological trauma was unparalleled. Hearing Lone Moon's instructions, Sun Shu regained his composure and retreated a few steps cautiously before sitting down to meditate. He had never been beaten up so badly before. If he had not been smart enough to hide in the crack and pretend to be dead, his immortal bones would have been broken by her. Wasn't it because he had been woken up? Her sleeping habits were too scary. Sun Shu had the cultivation of a young emperor after all. After meditating for an hour, his injuries were completely healed. Shining took the opportunity to have breakfast. "Let's set off. The unknown region is just ahead. Everyone be extra careful," Lone Moon said. They had just arrived and they had already encountered a divine artifact that had developed sentience. Who knew what they would encounter later on? He flew up on his sword and the four of them flew forward. In front of them was still a barren desert with no end in sight. All around them were all kinds of rocks and there were very few plants. But the strange thing was, compared to the other areas that were full of weapon refinement materials, this place seemed especially clean. There were no first or second level materials, much less high-grade weapon refinement ores, let alone divine artifacts. The four of them flew in this unknown region for 4 to 5 days, but still found nothing. Lone Moon was getting a little anxious. If the situation continued like this, they might as well go back. Father Nyo. Shining suddenly spoke. Why are we back again? What? Lone Moon replied. What do you mean back? Before he could finish speaking, he followed her line of sight and was instantly shocked. Holy shit. It was a pile of broken bones, the bones of demon beasts. It was not strange for bones to appear in such a barren desert, but the point was, they were thrown there by them during dinner 2 days ago. Lone Moon directly flew down and took a closer look. It was indeed the pile that they left behind 2 days ago. But this was clearly not the place where they rested that day. Could it be? His expression changed and he hurriedly looked at the person beside him. I Ching 5 Elements Array. I Ching nodded and swept the long sword in his hand. Immediately, 5 swords formed from immortal chi were inserted into 5 different positions. Lone Moon's hands conjured a seal and set up an array. Instantly, a few rays of light lit up. The scenery around them shook and the ground distorted. In a short while, all kinds of different things appeared. There were withered leaves and weeds, but most of them were fruit shells, residues, broken bones and other rubbish. They were all left behind by them in the past few days. They were all within a radius of more than 10 meters. Some were even less than a few feet away. How could this be? Could it be that they had been going around in the same place these few days? The key was that they did not notice anything. It's the Spirit Zither Array. Sun Shu suddenly opened his mouth and took a step forward. The Spirit Zither Array can create a circular barrier. No matter how far you go in, you will always return to the same place. But the scenery inside is constantly changing. We should be inside this barrier. As he spoke, he conjured a seal with one hand and muttered something. His hand flashed and he flew forward. Instantly, a white light flashed in front of them. A transparent barrier suddenly appeared in the originally empty sky. It was like a transparent membrane covering their eyes. Not far above them, something golden was gathering. They took a closer look and saw that it was actually a 4-leaf clover pattern. This should be the entrance to the center of the immortal realm. Sun Shu's eyes lit up as if he could not suppress his excitement. He took out a winter spirit leaf from his side and threw it at the pattern in the air. Immediately, the barrier in front of them shook and slowly split in the middle. In a short while, it formed the shape of an arched door. This is the entrance. Sun Shu's face was full of joy. He pointed at the arched door and said as he walked, "Let's go in quickly." "Oh," Shining suddenly said. "You've been here before." Sun Shu froze. Chapter 141. Ha ha ha. Sun Shu laughed dryly. After a while, he replied stiffly, "How could I have been here before? I was just guessing." "That's right, I was just guessing." Ha. The 3 of them stared at him. After a while, they replied in unison, "Oh, Sun Shu." What did they mean by, "oh"? Did they believe him or not? Sun Shu panicked. Oh no, were they going to be exposed? "Let's go." Shining suddenly stepped forward. Didn't you say it was the entrance?" She waved at them as she walked towards the arched door. "Chef, Father Nyo, let's go." After saying that, he stepped inside first. The other 2 glanced at each other before following suit. Sun Shu was left with a confused look on his face. That was it? Weren't they going to get to the bottom of it? Why did he suddenly feel a little disappointed? Glancing at the 3 of them who had already entered, he clenched his fists by his side and followed them. The moment they passed through the arched door, the scenery in front of them changed completely, as if a curtain had been lifted. A scorching aura hit them in the face. There were deviant fires and lava everywhere. The temperature was extraordinarily high. All around them was scorched earth. In front of them was a volcano that reached the clouds. It stood between heaven and earth. There were all kinds of swords stuck in the ground. Rather than calling it a volcano, it was more like sword catacomb. Lone Moon exclaimed subconsciously. Looking at the immortal swords everywhere, he wondered how much they would cost. It was a pity that these were all immortal swords that had already been sealed. Unless they recognized a new owner, they would not leave with anyone. They might as well be materials. As there were too many deviant fires on the ground, the few of them had to continue flying on their swords. Everywhere they passed, there were all kinds of sounds of swords humming. It seemed that no one had entered this sword catacomb for a long time. That was why these immortal swords were reacting so strongly. The sword room is over there. Let's go. Sun Shu pointed at the bottom of the huge volcano. Seeing the three of them turn to look at him in confusion, his heart sank. He immediately added, "Should." "Oh," Shining replied. She pulled Chef along and flew in the direction Sun Shu had pointed. After flying for a while, the surrounding temperature dropped instantly. Only then did they see that the bottom of the mountain fire was abruptly surrounded by a circle of ice. It was like a fault separating the inside and outside worlds. They flew down and landed on the ice. Sure enough, there was an entrance not far in front of them. It was a door made of ice and it was wide open, leading to the inside of the volcano. It was a bit far away so they couldn't see what was inside. Just as they were about to go over, a few popping sounds came from below. The ground shook and transparent bubbles as tall as a human suddenly emerged from the layer of ice. It floated in midair and instantly filled the entire ice surface. This ice can blow bubbles? Is it made of soap and water? Don't go over there, it's the 1,000-ray array. Sun Shu frowned and hurriedly stopped them. I didn't expect that there would be a 1,000-light array in a place like this. These look like bubbles, but they are formed by the condensation of immortal qi and are indestructible. Each of them has a sword qi sealed inside. Once you touch them, you will be trapped inside. What's more, it can absorb attacks of any element. We'd better go around. What are you doing? As he spoke, he saw I Ching unsheath his sword and walk straight toward the group of bubbles. Wait. Sword techniques alone can't break through. Before he could finish speaking, he saw I Ching's immortal qi explode. His entire body shone with golden light, and in an instant, a huge sword was formed. Sword qi filled the sky and I Ching waved his hand. There was a loud bang followed by a cracking sound. All the bubbles and the layer of ice on the ground broke into pieces. The entire 1,000-light array collapsed in an instant. It broke. This was too fast? What happened to being able to absorb attacks of any kind? You must be kidding me. Master said, one strong man can defeat 10. As if sensing his confusion, I Ching turned to look at Shining and said, Master, we can go now. I'll thank you for your hard work. Shining nodded and walked over the broken ice with a natural expression. Sun Shu. Lone Moon patted Sun Shu's shoulder and said with an understanding expression, You'll get used to it. It's just a cheat, haven't you seen the big one already? Why make a fuss about it? The group then walked into the volcano. It was a very long tunnel. It was pitch black inside as if no one had been here for a long time. The tunnel was filled with black dust. Lone Moon turned his hand and conjured a fire seal. The tunnel immediately lit up. As they walked in, they observed the materials around them. Let's see where we can dig? It was a pity that although the tunnel was old, it was clearly well designed. There was not a single crack in it and it had no commercial value. The deeper they went, the smoother the walls became. The entire interior of the volcano looked like it had been hollowed out. It was very spacious inside and there were even rows of huge stone pillars. They could not see the end of the tunnel and they had no idea how big it was. Be careful. Sun Shu called out anxiously. He pulled Lone Moon, who was walking in front, back. Then there was a clanging sound. An immortal sword stabbed into the ground at his feet. Lone Moon jumped. What's going on? Just as he finished speaking, the immortal sword seemed to have triggered some kind of switch. There was a series of swishing sounds. Suddenly, countless immortal swords rushed out from all directions, spinning like a tornado. Huge amounts of sword qi rushed towards them. They had no choice but to take a few steps back. There were a few flashes of light inside, and their surroundings suddenly lit up. Only then did they see the situation in front of them clearly. Swords. There were immortal swords everywhere. Countless immortal swords seemed to have come to life, dancing in the vast space in front of them. It was as if they could cut everything into pieces if they took a step closer. It's a sword array again. Lone Moon frowned. It did not look like it would be easy to deal with. This is the myriad phenomenon sword array, Sun Shu said. Myriad phenomenon. Lone Moon was shocked. His expression darkened. Is this the legendary strongest sword array, the one that can kill even divine beings? He had seen this array in some ancient books that he had dug out from the Qingtong immortal abode. But wasn't that just a legend? That should be it. Sun Shu nodded. I don't know how to break this array either. It looks like we'll have to put in a lot of effort to get through. Oh then. Lone Moon looked at the densely packed sword array in front of him once more. Then he turned around and said, Let's go back. What? Wait. Sun Shu pulled him back. his face full of disbelief. You're giving up just like that? Are you sure you don't want to go in and take a look? That's right. Lone Moon nodded matter-of-factly. Didn't you say we can't get through? It's about time. We should go back. What's more, we didn't see any useful materials along the way. Who knows if there are any inside? Rather than wasting time here, they might as well go back and pick up some leftovers. He waved at the other two and said, "Let's go, Shining Yi Qing." Chapter 142. Seeing that the three of them were about to leave, Sun Shu was stunned. He blocked them once again. Don't do that. We're already at the entrance. Why don't we go in and take a look? Who knows, there might be even better materials inside. Such a low probability of success is not worth investing in. Sun Shu looked determined. Did they have to be so straightforward? This was obviously a treasure trove. Were these three stupid? Why would they go back to mining? Wait a minute. Sun Shu's expression darkened. He gritted his teeth as if he had made up his mind. I'll tell you the truth. There must be a treasure in such a powerful sword array. Maybe it's the six-joint sword. The three of them stared blankly at each other before replying in unison, "Oh." What did they mean by, "Oh"? And then? Do you have a recorder? What do you mean? Sigh. Lone Moon sighed and rolled his eyes. I mean, even if there's the six-joint sword inside, what has it got to do with us? That's the six-joint sword. Didn't you come here to look for? Pui? Even if you didn't come here to look for the sword. But don't you want it? It's a divine weapon, a divine weapon. Aren't you tempted at all? I don't want it. Lone Moon's expression was calm. Even the other two looked disinterested. What's more, aren't divine weapons only used by young emperors and above? What are we doing here? Are we going to be beaten up by the entire immortal realm? Are you stupid? Sun Shu was speechless. What was going on? Suddenly he felt that Gushu was right. What's more, this stupid sword array looks very troublesome. Lone Moon glanced at the array in front of them. Don't you want Shining to do it? But this is a volcano. She can't control herself. If she doesn't break the array, she might even cause the mountain to collapse. Let's not talk about whether she will hurt me by accident. Are you sure you can find some stupid sword in the ruins? Shining? Why do I feel like I'm being looked down upon? Gushu's expression darkened. That was exactly what he was thinking. This sword array is indeed unbreakable. All right, let's go back to mining. There was only slightly more than a month left. He had to hurry up and earn money. Lone Moon turned and was about to leave when he realized that I Ching suddenly stopped moving. Instead, he turned to look at the sword array behind him. What are you doing? This array is so powerful. I Ching clenched his fists and turned to Shining. Master, can I try to break the array? Shining paused. You're crazy. Lone Moon objected. Didn't you hear what he said? This is the 10,000 images sword formation. Can even kill gods. Are you courting death by entering? That's why I want to give it a try. His expression became even more resolute. Cultivating the way of the sword has always been difficult. Facing difficulties is the way of the sword. I came to the celestial region to gain experience. Now that the tribulation was right in front of them, there was no reason for them to retreat. Master, please allow your disciple to try and break the formation. Oh. Shining tilted her head. Go then. Shining. Thank you, Master. I Ching turned his hand and condensed a sword with immortal chi. He turned and rushed into the sword array. Wait. Lone Moon did not stop him. He turned and glared at Shining. Are you crazy? Aren't you asking him to go in and die? Father Nyo, calm down. Shining patted his shoulder. Didn't he say that? If he doesn't force himself, he won't know how awesome he can be. Did he say that just now? Wait. It was rare for Shining to be so straightforward. Could it be that you've already seen that he has the strength to break the array? No. Shining said seriously. I'm talking nonsense. Lone Moon, Sun Shu, damn it. Bam! A strange sound came from within the sword array. I Ching, who had rushed into the sword array, was hit by an immortal sword. A wound appeared on his body and blood flowed like a fountain. His body, which had been moving like a shadow, also slowed down. He was drowned by the sword wind. After losing this advantage, more and more wounds appeared on his body. The sword array moved faster and faster. Even the sword shadows could not be seen. There was no time to condense immortal chi. Shit. Lone Moon and Sun Shu's faces darkened. They finally understood why even divine beings could not stop this array. It was really too fast. If this continued, I Ching would be cut into pieces by the sword array. No way. Shining, in 2 more minutes, if he can't break the array, you go in and save him. She nodded. The situation inside was getting worse. The sword array moved faster and faster. I Ching had completely given up on defense. He attacked as a form of defense. But this caused the injuries on his body to multiply. The more Lone Moon watched, the more anxious he became. This guy was really going all out. You have to think of something. Help him. Lone Moon nudged Shining beside him. Aren't you his master? This is a good opportunity. Teach him. Teach what? How would I know? He glared at her. Don't you have a glib tongue? Once you teach him, you cheat. Say what you said in the past. Defeat 10 with 1 strength? Become 1 with the sword? Yes, continue. That's all. That was all she had read in martial arts novels. Holy shit. Everything that happened in the past was definitely a scam, right? He hurriedly looked at the person in the array and found that the situation was getting worse. I'm telling you, this sword array is ever-changing. Any move is meaningless. You'd better teach him something concrete. If his injuries get worse, no one will cook for you. Shining was stunned. Her eyes widened. She stepped forward and looked at the flying swords. Teaching disciples was so troublesome. What should she do? What should she do? How would she know what move? Cough that chef. She suddenly remembered a saying. She said loudly, have you heard of this saying? Swordsmanship is natural. No move is better than having a move? No move is better than having a move? The figure in the array suddenly stopped. So, thousands of immortal swords rushed towards him, piercing through his body. Blood splattered everywhere. Lone Moon, Sun Shu, holy shit, Shining? Are you here to help or to cause trouble? You can't teach blindly like this? No move is better than having a move. Asking him to stop at this time is asking him to die. Boom! Before Lone Moon could finish speaking, a huge burst of sword chi burst out from within the sword array. The figure that had been pierced into a sieve by the sword suddenly disappeared like a phantom. The immortal swords in the entire sword array suddenly stopped and began to shake violently. The buzzing sound of the swords filled the entire space. These swords seemed to have met their natural enemy. In a short while they fell to the ground like dumplings. They filled half the space. The familiar sword intent was everywhere like the air. It was so oppressive that one could not breathe. I Ching stood high up on the pile of swords. The sword array was broken. How the F***ck could this happen? His sword chi. Sun Shu muttered in a daze. It was more than twice as strong as before. Indeed, sword immortals had to cultivate hard. He had never seen such a huge amount of sword chi. Even the sword chi on his body seemed to be suppressed. His cultivation was clearly higher. No, the immortal chi on his body was suppressed by him on purpose? He was having an epiphany. Thank you for your guidance, master. I Ching's figure flashed and he returned to Xin Ying's side. He knelt down on one knee and looked up at her excitedly. His white robes were still stained with blood. How are your injuries? Shining asked. Can you cook? It's all right. It's just a small injury. Master really cared about him. He was happy. Oh, that's good. She was relieved. Lone Moon. Son of AB***. Why did he have to say so much just now? He knew that Shining was an epiphany to I Ching. The sword array has been broken. Let's go. I Ching reminded them. He turned and swept away the sword mountain in front of him, clearing a path. Only then did everyone see that the opposite side was a sea of red. There was hot air coming from it and the sound of lava bubbling could be heard. The center of the mountain is inside. Sun Shu's eyes lit up. He hurried in that direction. The 3 of them followed. There was a huge space inside. There was lava everywhere. Occasionally, a few flames would shoot out from the surface. The flames were very special. They were purple and had some black spots. Above the lava, there was a stone bridge leading to the center. It was tens of meters high, but it could not block the heat of the flames. It was as if they could burn everything in the world. Lone Moon subconsciously wanted to set up an isolation array for them. But he heard Sun Shu, who was the first to enter, exclaim, "How could this be?" Chapter 143. Sun Shu was standing in the middle of a circular platform. On the platform was a metal table that looked like a casting table. A ball of black flames was burning brightly on the table. In the middle of the flames, there was a faint golden light flashing. The few of them walked closer and realized that there was an illusory image of a sword floating in the light. It rippled like water, faintly discernible. Sun Shu stood at the side in shock, his face full of disbelief. He muttered, "How can this be? How can this be?" He took a few steps back, his eyes full of disappointment. He laughed self-deprecatingly and said, no wonder the clan rules say that no one can obtain this sword. So that's how it is." Lone Moon stepped forward to look at the sword in the flames. Suddenly he thought of something and frowned. Could this be the six-joint sword? Sun Shu paused and clenched his fists by his side. Then he slowly nodded. How can that be? The thing in the flames was clearly the shadow of a sword. It's the Mirage Divine spell. Before Lone Moon could finish, Sun Shu explained in disappointment, this sword is sealed in the void of chaos. So although it can be seen, there is no way to retrieve it. So this is the power of creation that can split the heavens and split the earth. Because it was sealed in the void of chaos, unless one had the ability to break through realms, there was no way to retrieve it. You want it? Shining suddenly asked. Sun Shu laughed self-deprecatingly. Everyone who enters the immortal realm wants this sword. Oh. It's a pity that this sword is not in this realm. No one. Wait, what are you doing? He turned his head, only to see Shining suddenly reach out towards the flames. This is immortal origin fire, you can't. Before he could finish speaking, Xinying's hand had already passed through the black flames. She tightened her grip and with a whoosh she pulled the sword out of the flames. In an instant, golden light shone brightly and thick immortal chi filled the entire space. She took it out? How could this be? Shining looked at the sword in her hand. Apart from the yellow dot, it did not seem to be anything special. She threw the sword to Sun Shu and said, Here. She gave it to him? Was he hallucinating? He looked at the sword in his hand with a dumbfounded expression. When he raised his head to look at the person opposite him, he realized that she had already turned around to look at the person behind her. Father Nyo, I think this fire is not bad. Master, this is the essence flame of the immortal world. No other deviant flames can compare to it. Oh, do you want to bring it back? Lone Moon rolled his eyes at them. Isn't that obvious? Of course we have to bring it back. The key is that this fire can burn anything. There's nothing to store it in. Master, this table doesn't seem to be burning. Could it be that it can restrain this fire? Why don't we take the table with us? Yiqing, do you have any more space in your storage bag? There's only half of the last one left. I wonder if it's enough? Whatever, let's put it on first. Thus, the three of them each took a corner of the storage bag and walked toward the exceptional flame platform. They looked like they wanted to take the pot away with them. Sun Shu, hey. The divine artifact is right here, why don't you take a look at it? Why were they all staring at that ball of fire and drooling? Was the fire more important than the divine artifact? Why did he suddenly feel like he was going blind? The corner of his mouth twitched. He glanced at Shining, then lowered his head to look at the sword in his hand. Finally, he could not help but call out, Shining. The person who was about to instruct them to move the table turned back. You really gave this sword to me? Yes. Shining nodded. Was there a problem? She did not guarantee it. Sun Shu still could not believe it. He reminded her again, this is a divine artifact. She had given it to him so easily. Even the other two did not seem to have any objections. I know. You don't want it? He was at a loss for words. He was even more conflicted now. She knew from the start that he had followed them because he wanted to use her to find this sword. He had clearly suspected him the entire way here, and he had already made preparations to fight to the death if he really found him. But she actually gave it to him just like that. There was no hesitation or reluctance. She threw it to him as if it was a bun. What? Huh? Shining paused. She looked even more confused. If you want it, I'll give it to you. Does it need a reason? He was about to ask more questions when Lone Moon urged, Shining, help me open the bag. Otherwise, how are we going to put it in? Shining turned around and tugged at the storage bag. Sun Shu clenched his fists. Looking at the three busy people, he chuckled. A while later, the table is not restraining the fire. It's the living soil on it. What the hell was this uncontrollable urge to remind them? Sun Shu took 2 steps forward and pushed aside the people surrounding the table. He grabbed a handful of yellow soil from the table and threw it into the fire. The black fire immediately shrunk into a ball. The soil immediately surrounded the fire. Within seconds, it formed a yellow ball of soil and landed on the table. That'll do. He handed over the yellow ball wrapped in flames. Wow! The three of them exclaimed like country bumpkins. So this kind of technology existed. Lone Moon took it. Indeed, the deviant fire wrapped in the living soil was no longer warm. It was even slightly cold. He immediately kept it in his storage bag. Glancing at the table beside him, he narrowed his eyes and waved to the two people behind him. Continue carrying it. Take it all away. Don't waste it. How poor are you guys? The corner of his mouth twitched as he watched the few of them shove the table into their storage bags. Suppressing the veins on his forehead, he took a deep breath and took a step forward. He walked to the center of the room and held the god artifact in his hands. His eyes darkened as he said, "This sword. Thank you." "You're welcome." Shining replied subconsciously. "Do you want to know why I want this weapon?" Sun Shu clenched his fists. Suddenly he had the urge to say something. The three people turned to look at him. Sun Shu took a deep breath. Although he had chased them all the way here in the name of the Winter Spirit Leaf, these people had been very loyal to him. They knew what he wanted but did not attack him. What's more, they had given him the sword so readily. He should not continue to hide it. Otherwise he would be a villain. "Actually, I don't want to know." Before he could finish, the three of them spoke in unison. Shining, that's so troublesome. One look and I can tell you're going to tell a long story. It's almost dinner time. It's not good for your stomach if you're late. Lone Moon, we're not that close. Why should we be interested in your tragic past? If we have the time, we might as well continue looking for materials. I Ching, it's time to prepare dinner. What does Master want to eat tonight? Sun Shu, what the hell? Can you guys at least have some normal reactions? For all. Chapter 144. The Yu Feng Immortal Region is not an immortal region left behind by the ancient gods. It is the residence of the Flowing Flame clan. The so-called 10 Directions divine weapon is not a weapon left behind by the gods, but a sacred weapon forged by my clan. Originally, it was just a divine artifact used to suppress this immortal region and maintain the stability of this realm. My ancestors were born in the chaos. This immortal region is a world created by them after many generations. Although it is outside the 3,000 worlds, it is a world of its own. My clansmen are born with the ability to form objects. Our clansmen are born to be good at forging magic weapons. But it was also because of this ability that brought about a calamity. The weapons we forged became stronger and stronger, even possessing the ability to split open the heavens. Because of this, our clan's name shook the 3 realms. The immortal energy of the ancient immortal world was not like it is today, no different from the divine realm. Immortals and the divine race often had conflicts. The celestial emperor of the immortal world asked us to forge a batch of weapons that could restrain the divine race. Although we did not agree, we did forge a few weapons that were powerful enough to restrain the divine race. This caused the divine race to be furious and of course they attacked us. Although we had the support of the divine weapon, our clansmen were too few and naturally could not resist the powerful divine race. That battle was very tragic. The entire Yu Feng Immortal region was destroyed and our clan was almost wiped out. Only a small number of clansmen escaped to the 3,000 worlds. Yu Feng Immortal region fell to the immortal world. To protect our heritage, our clan leader sealed the abilities of our clansmen into our bloodlines to avoid the divine race's pursuit. We looked forward to the day when our descendants could return here and regain the glory of our ancestors. But most of the clansmen who escaped entered the mortal world. The spirit energy in the mortal world is thin, and it is difficult to ascend, let alone awaken a bloodline. 100,000 years ago, I awakened my bloodline memories by chance. That's how I found the winter spirit leaf that could allow me to cross the lofty river. It was also because of these memories that I learned about the situation in the immortal region. Although all of this happened in the ancient times, the original Flowing Flame clan may have been no different from ordinary people like me. However, I still want to find my clansmen. This hexagon sword is actually the cornerstone of this immortal region. It is also the key that seals the bloodline memories of our clansmen. Only it can awaken the memories of our clansmen. Now you should understand why I must obtain this sword, right? Sun Shu finished speaking in one breath. He sucked in a deep breath and looked at the trio anxiously. *CK. Shining, you foodie, at least leave some food for me, right? Aren't you afraid of bursting to death by eating so much? I saved it for you. Keep your sister. Other than green peppers, chives, and garlic, is there anything else in this bowl? Where's the meat? Don't be picky. How dare you say that? Wait. Iching, you bootlicker, put down that pastry. I made it. *CK. The three of them were fighting for food in full swing. From the beginning to the end, no one cast a glance in their direction. Sun Shu. He vaguely felt as if something had snapped in his mind. Flips table. For all. Ngunguo, was he even listening? At least show some respect. He must be blind to want to be honest with these people. This trip to Yufeng Immortal region took only 1.5 months. They came out early. Because their storage bags were full. Considering that it would take more time to go back and buy more, Lone Moon had no choice but to go back. Before they could cross the Miaoshui River, they saw a row of people standing by the river looking in their direction. Fellow Immortally, you came out quite quickly. Immortal Emperor Guyu smiled kindly as he walked up to them. It was obvious that he had not left for the past month. He had been waiting for them to come out. He glanced at I Ching and paused. Looks like you've gained a lot from this trip. The sword chi around him had actually increased by so much. Immortal Emperor. I Ching nodded in greeting. I wonder if you have any news about the hexagon sword or the divine artifact? He asked anxiously. Both. He answered honestly. What? Guyu paused, not understanding what he meant. Exalted Emperor Gu. Before he could ask, Sun Shu took a step forward. Instead of asking him, why don't you ask me directly? Guyu frowned and asked tentatively, what do you mean, young Emperor Sun? What I mean is. Sun Shu smiled. The hexagon sword is already mine. Exalted Emperor, you don't have to send sword immortals in to search for the sword for you anymore. What? Guyu's face contorted, but he recovered quickly. You really found the hexagon sword? That's right. I didn't expect to be so lucky. With a flick of his wrist, a small golden sword appeared in Sun Shu's hand. It was the six-joint sword. Guyu's expression darkened. He took a few deep breaths as if trying to suppress his anger. After a while, he gritted his teeth and said, Congratulations, young Emperor Sun. Although his cultivation level was higher than Sun Shu's, Sun Shu was a sword immortal. Now that he had 2 divine artifacts, he might not be Sun Shu's match. He could only swallow his anger. Turning back to look at I Ching, he said with a half-smile, I didn't expect some people to be so useless. To think that I was filled with anticipation. Then, without waiting for a response, he snorted, waved his hand and flew away with the group behind him. It was as if he did not want to look at them again. Shining, who had just taken out the repaired myriad sword box. They've already left. Should she give it to them or not? Forget it if you don't want it. Lone Moon immediately took the myriad sword box from her and stuffed it back into his storage bag. He had been afraid that I Ching would not be able to explain himself, so he went back to pick it up and asked Sun Shu to repair it, intending to give it to the immortal emperor. This saved him a lot of trouble. Although divine artifacts could only be used by young emperors and above, they could still be used to dismantle the heavenly firestone. It would be a waste not to take it. You'd better leave this place quickly. Sun Shu reminded them. Although Guyu knows that the hexagon sword is in my hands, he's always been petty. You've embarrassed him. He won't let you off so easily. What's more, you're on their turf. Sun Shu stopped mid-sentence as if thinking of something. Why don't you move to my Shangdong immortal abode? No thanks. The environment there is quite good. Lone Moon rejected the offer. There were no natural business opportunities like the invincible sect anywhere else. What's more, with the cheat, they were not afraid of the immortal emperor's tricks. But I'm afraid we'll have to trouble young Emperor Sun in the future. Alright, it's good that you know what to do. Sun Shu turned to look at Shining, who was sitting lazily beside him. He had the same thought. You've helped me a lot this time. If you need anything, feel free to look for me. Lone Moon's eyes flashed. Then I'll thank young Emperor Sun in advance. He cupped his fists and bowed. Turning to the other two, he said, Let's go home. Shining was just about to step forward when her clothes tightened. Master, I might not be able to. I Ching's expression changed. In a low voice he said, I can't suppress my immortal chi. I might be about to break through. Shining, Lone Moon, son of AB*TC. Chapter 145. 3 months later. Siyu greets sect master and 2 elders. Siyu walked into the back hall looking travel-worn. She bowed to the few of them. Hey, little green. Shining waved a hand in greeting out of habit. Siyu's eyes lit up. Her tired face brightened. You're back. Lone Moon glanced at her. How was it? Did everything go well? Yes. Siyu nodded. She took out a storage bag from her side and handed it over. I've completed the task that Elder asked me to do. Exalted Immortal Shu asked me to pass this to Elder. What? Shining asked curiously. She had not seen Little Green for a few days. Father Nyo had sent her out. The rest of the payment, Lone Moon answered. He opened the storage bag. A white light flashed out. The few of them were almost blinded by the immortal stones that were stuffed into the bag. This, so much? Shining and his pauper friends were all stunned. Didn't I give Shu Jiang a few talismans to auction? Lone Moon used his divine perception to confirm that there was no mistake. He kept the bag. Looking at the time, he should have sold a portion of them. That's why I sent Siyu to collect the rest of the payment. Father Nyo indeed. Those few air talismans that he sold were really sold? And it looked like they were not cheap. Lone Moon suddenly thought of something. He turned to the person beside him and said, I Ching, the array that I asked you to set up around the demonic chi to counter divine perception, have you done it? I Ching nodded. He poured a cup of tea for Shining. I set it up yesterday. That's good. This way he could let the first batch of people who bought the talismans enter the demonic chi to train. What's more, that area was isolated by an array. It would not allow immortals who entered to disturb the cultivation of the sect's disciples. It would also not expose the truth about the demonic chi. What's more, that array was taught to I Ching by Sun Shu. Ordinary people would not be able to break through it. Oh yes, has Yu Hong returned? Lone Moon suddenly thought of something else. Siyu shook her head. I did not meet senior sister on my way back. Lone Moon counted the time. Indeed, it was not time to return yet. He let Siyu rest and was about to discuss the matter of demonic chi when he realized that the two people beside him were already happily discussing the matter of additional meals. We have money. Chef, we can start preparing the afternoon tea. Master, what do you want to eat? Anything is fine, like shredded melon, diced pheasant, mixed jellyfish, asparagus, stir-fried winter bamboo shoots, slices of magnolia, mixed mandarin duck, braised fish head, and so on. Yes, master. No problem, master. Lone Moon, these two prodigals. Shandong Immortal Residence. What did you say? The corner of Sun Shu's mouth twitched. He looked at the woman in front of him, who looked very mature. For a moment he thought he had heard wrongly. Who told you to come here? I am the eldest disciple of Invincible Sect. Yu Hong stepped forward and cupped her fists again. Elder Lone Moon of my sect asked me to come. Sun Shu's expression darkened. Say that again. Why did he ask you to come here? Yu Hong's expression did not change at all. She repeated what she had just said unhurriedly. My elder said that young Emperor Sun is kind and generous. He promised that if our sect had any problems, we could look for him. But our sect does not lack anything except for a batch of immortal weapons. Our sect is very sorry to let young Emperor work so hard. So, we will prepare the materials for refining weapons ourselves. Please, young Emperor, help us refine a few immortal weapons. You call this a few? Do you think I don't know how to count? Sun Shu pointed at the storage bags on the table and almost threw them back at her face. The materials for a few immortal weapons in your sect need to be stored in dozens of storage bags. Don't think I don't know. That's all the materials you dug up in the immortal territory. Thank you, young Emperor. Yu Hong bowed again. Get lost. Sun Shu glared at her. Indeed, this disciple of Invincible Sect was as annoying as those three people. I'm not a blacksmith for free. If you want immortal weapons, find someone else. Yu Hong glanced at the storage bags on the table. Unexpectedly, she did not insist. She stepped forward and picked up the bag. Our elder said that if young Emperor is not free, there is no need to force yourself. Sun Shu looked at her in surprise. She was giving up so quickly? This was not like those little rascals' personality. But she added respectfully, our Invincible Sect does not force others to do things against their will. We are not ungrateful people. Was she scolding him? Our elder also said that he is very grateful for young Emperor's help in the immortal territory. He will personally visit with our sect master to congratulate young Emperor on your reunion with your people. Was this a threat? This was definitely it. I will take my leave. Come back. Sun Shu felt the veins on his forehead throbbing. He gritted his teeth and snatched the bag of materials from her hands. Gritting his teeth, he said, I'll refine. Damn it. The point was that he was really being threatened. Anyone but Shining could do it. Thank you, young Emperor. Yu Hong hurriedly thanked him. Suddenly, she took out a booklet from her side and handed it over. My elder said that this is the list of immortal weapons that you need to refine. You just have to follow the numbers on it. Sun Shu subconsciously took it, but he didn't hold it properly. The other end of the booklet fell with a whoosh, and instantly pulled out a list that was a few meters long. On the list, there were thousands of weapons names written in tiny characters. Yu Hong, Sun Shu. He could vaguely hear a snapping sound in his head. A moment later, get lost. A roar reverberated through the entire Shangdong immortal abode, spreading for hundreds of miles. Something strange had happened in the immortal realm recently. Exalted Immortal Shu's treasure tower would auction a few spirit transmission talismans every few months. It was said that through these talismans, one's divine perception could be sent to a holy land. Inside the holy land, one's divine perception would be able to improve rapidly, be it in terms of cultivation, immortal techniques, state of mind and divine perception. It did not matter what cultivation one had. This news caused an uproar among the immortals, especially after the first batch of immortals who had entered the Holy Land came out. A few of them did indeed improve their cultivation. There were even immortals who had not improved in 10,000 years who broke through to the next realm. In an instant, the news spread throughout the entire country of Chongzhen. Everyone rushed to the treasure tower, hoping to get a spirit transmission talisman that could lead them to the Holy Land. Unfortunately, this talisman was very rare. Every few months or even half a year, only a few would be auctioned at the treasure tower. Moreover, the price would rise. Each talisman could be sold for hundreds of thousands. Millions of supreme-grade immortal stones were still hard to get. Because of this, the immortals all felt some resentment towards the treasure tower, who had the source of this talisman. But there was nothing they could do. There were also people who wanted to find the Holy Land, but no matter how hard they looked, they could not find its exact location. Apart from the people of Invincible Sect, whose cultivation levels rose rapidly and whose hands were cramping from counting money. Chapter 146. Lone Moon touched the increasingly full sect storeroom and smiled like a professional profiteer. Even the shock of I Ching's breakthrough to Exalted Immortal faded a lot. He was in a rare good mood. He waved his hand and said, "From now on, I'll approve all your requests for supper." He thought that he would hear someone cheering, but there was only silence behind him. He frowned. "What's wrong? There's supper, why aren't you?" He stopped speaking and looked at the person beside him. Only then did he realize that Shining, who had been eating just now, had fallen asleep on the table. He could hear her light breathing. It can't be. This fellow could even fall asleep while eating now? She's improved. Lone Moon did not mind. He casually sent a voice transmission to I Ching in the kitchen, asking him to send her back to her room. He turned and went back to his business in the Holy Land. Recently, the disciples' cultivation levels had risen very quickly. Most of them were earth immortals with immortal bones. Even his cultivation level had risen to mystic immortal because he frequently went in and out of demonic chi. Sun Shu had also sent more than half of the immortal artifacts over. It was the busiest time. But he did not expect that Shining would not wake up for a few days after she fell asleep. The person who would always appear at the back hall punctually when it was mealtime had not appeared for a few days already. Even when he sent food into the room, she still did not respond at all. Will Master be all right? I Ching's brows were knitted together as he looked worriedly at Xin Ying's room. What can happen to her? Lone Moon rolled his eyes. He thought for a moment but still asked, "How long has she been like this?" 5 days. So long. Then did she say anything to you the day she fell asleep? Although Shining was lazy, she was not stupid. In fact, she was more sensitive than the average person. If she discovered something, she would definitely have left some hints. I Ching thought for a moment, then shook his head. No. She was no different from before that day. No, then she should be fine. Lone Moon heaved a sigh of relief. You also know that although she is lazy, she is actually very smart. Something really happened, she would definitely say it. What's more, didn't she sleep for 2 days in a row before? But Sect Master has slept for too long this time. Yu Hong took a step forward and suggested hesitantly, "Why don't we try to wake Sect Master?" I Ching and Lone Moon paused. It was a good idea, but who called? I Ching, Lone Moon, Yu Hong. A while later, cough. Well, maybe she was just too tired. Lone Moon laughed awkwardly. When we were in Yufeng Immortal Region, there were a few days where we didn't even have a day or night. It's normal for her to catch up on sleep. It should be, right? But More than half a year had passed since the incident in the immortal region. Although Yu Hong had some doubts, she could only accept this answer. The sect leader was so powerful, who could scheme against her? Perhaps he was just too sleepy? Only I Ching, who was at the side, clenched his fists and stared at the room for a while. As he walked towards the door, he suddenly reached out and pushed the door open. I Ching. Lone Moon was shocked. Do you want to die? He looked into the room. Strangely, the person lying on the bed had not been woken up. Only the sound of shallow breathing could be heard. She still looked like she was in a deep sleep. Master, it's time to eat. I Ching walked to the bed and pushed the person on the bed. Shining still did not respond. I made your favorite meat dishes. There's stir-fried crab, steamed dacha, assorted immortal rice, toad fish, braised ribbon fish, spicy wild chicken. He listed a whole bunch of dishes, but the person on the bed still did not respond. Even her breathing did not change. For no reason, panic surged in his heart. His head was buzzing. His hands by his side unconsciously trembled. Master? Lone Moon then realized that something was wrong. His expression changed. Something really happened. He hurriedly walked into the room and reminded I Ching, who was obviously panicking. Quick, check her pulse. I Ching paused, then reacted. He immediately grabbed one of the person's hands and checked her pulse. He separated a bit of immortal chi to check, but found nothing out of the ordinary. He hurriedly tried a few more times, but still did not find anything out of the ordinary. How is it? What's wrong with being a foodie? Lone Moon asked. I don't know. I Ching shook his head. How could it be? Let me see. Lone Moon snatched the person's hand and checked her pulse. His expression darkened. Indeed, there was nothing wrong. He gripped the jade flute in his hand impatiently. After thinking for a moment, he turned to the person behind him and said, Yu Hong, go to Shangdong Immortal Abode quickly. Perhaps it was because their cultivation levels were too low to check. Don't ask young Emperor Sun to come. Tell him it's urgent. Forget it. I'll go. He turned to leave, but I Ching beside him was one step ahead. I'll go. In a flash he flew out. Fortunately, because of the immortal artifact forging incident, Invincible Sect and Shangdong Immortal Abode had already set up a transportation array. In less than 5 breaths' time, I Ching had returned with Sun Shu. Hey, why did you drag me here? Sun Shu, who was in the middle of refining, looked unhappy. I'm telling you, if this immortal sword is broken, it's not my. He was halfway through his sentence when he saw the person sleeping soundly on the bed. He sucked in a deep breath and widened his eyes. He struggled out of I Ching's grip and hid behind the door in a flash. Even his voice transmission was trembling. *CK, you two little bastards. Just say it if you want me dead. What happened to being friends? What did he mean by bringing him to the sleeping Shining? Did he think that he had not been beaten up enough? Don't worry, she's fine. Lone Moon's mouth twitched. How traumatized was he? Come over and take a look at her. What's wrong? Sun Shu looked at them suspiciously. He still did not dare to come out from behind the door. Lone Moon assured him again and again, and he even demonstrated by shouting a few times. Indeed, the person on the bed did not respond. Only then did Sun Shu move out at the speed of a tortoise. After taking a few deep breaths, he finally checked the pulse of the person on the bed. After a while, he retracted his hand and lowered his voice out of habit. Her breathing is stable. Her pulse is calm. Nothing out of the ordinary. She's just asleep. Why did you call me here? To train his courage? Master has been asleep for 5 days, I Ching explained. What? That can't be. Sun Shu paused. Then, as if recalling something, he pointed 2 fingers at Xin Ying's forehead and sent a sliver of immortal qi into her. He wanted to check her divine perception, but found that it was empty. Shocked, he said, could this be the soul detachment technique? That can't be right. Before the others could react, Sun Shu rebutted, her soul has not left her body. How could it be? What's the soul detachment technique? I Ching asked anxiously. The soul detachment technique is a type of soul-searching technique. Sun Shu explained, the soul-searching technique can extract a person's soul, but the soul detachment technique only allows the soul to leave the body. This technique is of little value. It can only make the person fall into a deep sleep. It does no actual harm to the body. That's why most immortals have never heard of it. I've only heard of it from the ancient memories I inherited. You're saying that Shining has been struck by this technique? Lone Moon asked. It's very likely. Sun Shu nodded. The strange thing is that her soul has not left her body. It's just that part of her divine perception is not in her body. But someone must have cast a spell on her. It looks like you're in trouble. Everyone's expressions darkened. I Ching's face darkened. He clenched his fists even tighter. Xin Ying's divine perception, who had been standing by the side, did no one realize that she was just sleepwalking? Chapter 147. Xining looked left and right. Seeing that they could not see her at all, she sighed. Just as she was about to return to her body, she heard a strange sound. It was a very soft sound. She could not tell what it was. She paused and floated out of the door subconsciously. No one in the room felt anything. I Ching frowned and looked at Sun Shu anxiously. How can we wake Master up? Her divine perception has just left her body. It's not a big deal. Sun Shu thought for a moment and said, if we want her to wake up, we have to wait for her divine perception to return on its own or find the person who cast the spell. But divine perception can travel thousands of miles in an instant. We have to wait for her to return? At once, they thought of a certain someone's bad sense of direction. They exchanged glances and their expressions darkened. Cough. Let's talk about the person who cast the sorcery. Lone Moon pursed his lips. For the past 6 months, Xining has never stepped out of Invincible Sect. Of course there were no outsiders either. Who could cast the sorcery on her? It may not be recent, Sun Shu said in a low voice. The soul-leaving spell is very simple. It does not need to be cast in person. It can be cast with talismans, tools, or anything with immortal qi. Think carefully. Before she returned, did she come into contact with any strangers or objects? Objects? The two of them turned to look at Sun Shu. Why are you looking at me? It's not the winter spirit tree. Sun Shu glared at the two of them. If I was the one who cast the spell, why would I come here? Besides, didn't you pluck the winter spirit tree yourselves? She did not touch anything except for a meal in Upper Capital. And I ate that meal too. Lone Moon really could not remember when she was cast. I Ching suddenly thought of something. No, there's something else. What? The winter spirit leaf. I said it wasn't me. Sun Shu panicked and was about to explain. I Ching took out a leaf that was beginning to turn yellow from the storage bag beside him. This was given to me by Immortal Emperor Guyu. Only Master and I have touched it. Sun Shu's expression darkened. He quickly gestured for I Ching to put the leaf on the table. He formed a few hand seals and sent them toward the leaf. There was a flash of light. The originally slightly yellowed leaf suddenly turned black from the center like a piece of paper that had been dripped with thick ink. In a moment the entire leaf had turned black. Even the table was covered in a layer of black. This leaf has been poisoned with Brahma underworld poison. Sun Shu's expression changed. That was a type of poison that targeted the immortal physique. A person who was poisoned could only live for at most 4 months before this poison would directly enter their immortal bones. It was an extremely sinister type of poison. He hurriedly looked at I Ching. But you why? How could he be fine? Lone Moon was also shocked. That day when they left the Yufeng immortal domain, Immortal Emperor Guyu was clearly very angry that they did not get the 6 Unity Sword. But for the past 6 months he had not done anything to Invincible Sect. Originally he thought that he was holding back a big move, but he didn't expect that he had already planned everything. She had given I Ching this piece of winter spirit leaf from the very beginning because she didn't want him to live. What he didn't expect was that I Ching had a natural sword embodiment, which meant that he was immune to all poisons. It's him. He cast a spell on Master. I Ching clenched his fists, his veins popping out. His entire person seemed to be enveloped by anger. In an instant he condensed an immortal sword. Wait, I Ching, don't move. Before Lone Moon could finish speaking, I Ching's figure flashed and he was already flying out. Holy shit. Come back here. He immediately chased after him but found that I Ching was already gone. Lone Moon suddenly felt like cursing. He had been a brainless chef for so long that he almost forgot that I Ching was a person who hated evil. What's more, the person lying there was Xining. It would be strange if he didn't go crazy. What to do? What to do? After thinking about it, Lone Moon hurriedly entered the house, grabbed Sun Shu and chased after him. Quick, quick, quick. Let's go together. We have to get him back. He can't beat Guyu. What? Isn't that obvious? That's an immortal emperor. Not to mention how many immortals there are. Even if he can challenge those above his level, he's just an exalted immortal. How can he beat an immortal emperor who's 2 realms higher than him? Sun Shu paused and looked back at Lone Moon strangely. You don't know? Know what? To become a young emperor, one has to go to the emperor ascension stage. So, when he broke through, he suppressed his cultivation level to that of an exalted immortal. In fact, he's already a young emperor. What? With a sudden stop, Lone Moon almost fell off the sword. Motherf asterisk her. At that moment, at the foot of Invincible Sect's mountain, Shining looked in front of her. The demonic chi surrounded Invincible Sect. She wasn't sure if it was an illusion, but she felt that the demonic chi today seemed a little fatter. She instinctively took a step closer. The black fog in front of her suddenly shook, as if it was about to dissipate. Why are you shaking? Shining looked at the demonic chi speechless. She hadn't done anything yet. She walked in directly. The thick black fog seemed to have met its natural enemy. It immediately dispersed, revealing a clean space. Before she could react, the sound came again. Only then did she realize that it was a sobbing sound. He saw a small figure squatting under a withered tree not far away. His hands were hugging his knees, and his head was buried between his legs. His small body was trembling as if he was scared out of his wits. From time to time he would cry softly. A child. Where did she come from? No wonder the demonic chi was acting so strangely today. It had done something bad and was bullying a child. Hey child. She walked over and called out. The small figure trembled and then slowly raised her head, revealing a face full of black chi. This child looked like a ghost. Traces of black chi floated out of her face. It was so thick that she couldn't see her features clearly. The demonic chi around her was too thick. She didn't notice it at first, but on closer look, it wasn't just her face. Her entire body was emitting that black chi continuously. No wonder the demonic chi surrounded her. It was treating this child as its own kind. Big sister? The child stopped crying. She seemed to have just realized that the black chi around her was gone. Surprise flashed across her eyes. She looked at Shining timidly, then looked at her with vigilance and anticipation. Big sister, are you the ghost servant who came to take me away? What the hell? Little friend, why are you here? Only Invincible Sect disciples and Father Nyo's customers entered the demonic chi. This child was obviously not from either side. I don't know. She shook her head and looked at the black demonic chi around her. She trembled before continuing. They said, I'm a jinx who will only harm people, so they all hit me. It hurts. Xin Ying's expression darkened. What the hell? They said that it would be better if I died. In the end, I came here. She seemed to have thought of something. She looked at Shining curiously and said, Big sister, are you dead too? What nonsense is this little brat talking about? What a coincidence, me too. She pulled the corner of her mouth and gave her a cautious smile. She looked around fearfully. Is this where we go after death? But here, it's so cold. Shining then realized that this child's body was translucent. She was really a ghost. Were there ghosts in the immortal realm too? And she even floated here? How troublesome. She should leave this to Father Nyo. Hey little brat. Shining waved at her. Come here, I'll take you out. Really? She was stunned. She looked at Xin Ying's hand but still stood up obediently. Won't it not be cold outside? Yes. Shining nodded. She then took Xin Ying's hand. Thank you, big sister ghost servant. How did she know that she was a ghost servant? The corner of Xin Ying's mouth twitched. She was about to fly towards Invincible Sect when a white light flashed beneath her feet. An array was formed. Before she could see them clearly, the two ghosts had disappeared from where they had been standing. Chapter 148. In the blink of an eye, the two of them were already standing in an unfamiliar room. The room was not big, but there were 4 or 5 people standing there. They looked to be young and older women, and they were all busy. From time to time there were a few encouraging words such as, come on, it's coming out soon, work harder, and so on. It seemed to be a delivery room. Sister ghost servant, thank you for sending me off. The little ghost suddenly let go of her hand. She already said that she was not a ghost servant. Then I'll leave first. The little ghost smiled at her, and suddenly her figure flashed. She drilled into the stomach of the pregnant woman on the bed and disappeared. In the next moment, the sound of a baby crying filled the entire room. It's coming out, it's coming out. Shining finally reacted. Could this be reincarnation? She was just dreaming. Could it be that she had really become a ghost servant? Straight face, she looked around and floated out, only to find that she was in a thatched cottage, and there was a small courtyard outside. Further outside was a very wide field, and there were people working in it. Since she had nothing to do, Shining wandered around the small village. After walking around, she finally found a problem. That array seemed to have sent her directly to the mortal world. This distance was really not a normal distance. And she did not know if it was an illusion, but she felt that time seemed to pass very quickly here, as if it was changing every minute. The little ghost that came with her had turned from a baby to a little girl in just a few days, and she had grown to the height of her waist. But after reincarnation she had forgotten about the past, and like the others she could not see her. Even the original black aura around her had disappeared. After all, they had exchanged a few words, so Shining naturally paid more attention to her. But with one look she saw a life full of ups and downs. For the first time she knew that a person could be so unlucky. This little girl's life could be summed up with one word: unlucky. As long as she went out, she would either fall into a ditch or fall down a hill. No matter how flat the road was, she would step on water. No matter how small the forest was, she would encounter ferocious beasts. She would choke when drinking water, and she would fall while sitting in the house. Her life was like a pantomime, falling every 3 seconds, falling every 5 seconds. Moreover, this kind of bad luck spread. As long as someone was within 5 feet of her, they would definitely be implicated by her. They would either be pulled into the ditch or rolled down the slope. Even her relatives were the same. It was supposed to be a good year, but only her family had no harvest. Even though he lived in the innermost part of the village, he was visited by thieves every month. If it rained, it would flood her house. If a volcano erupted, it would burn her house. If it collapsed, it would bury her house. She was like a walking plague, bringing bad luck wherever she went. Shining glanced at the little girl at the side, who was standing on her tiptoes and stretching out her little hand, desperately trying to reach the fruit on the tree. Shining sighed. What an unlucky child. Thus, she reached out her hand and raised the fruit that she could only touch with her fingertips a little higher. For all. Hee, I just can't reach it. The little girl's originally red face turned pale instantly. Looking at the fruit that she had no hope of reaching, she pouted and her eyes became misty. She looked like she was about to cry. This jinx is here again. Suddenly, a young male voice came from behind her. The little girl trembled in fear and turned around in horror. She saw a little fatty running out from behind her. Compared to her messy hair and dirty face, he was dressed very neatly. He was pouting and pointing angrily at the little girl. He turned around and shouted a few words behind him. Instantly, a few children of his age ran over from the side path. They looked at the little girl under the tree maliciously. He started to criticize her with every word. My mother said that she's a jinx, a monster. She's the best at harming people. No wonder her parents don't want her anymore. I saw it just now. She wanted to steal the fruit on the tree. She won't harm the fruit trees too, will she? What if they don't bear any fruit in the future? Hit her. We can't let her harm the fruit trees. That's right, the fruit is ours. Hit her. The more they talked, the angrier they became. They rushed towards the little girl. No, I didn't. She was even more afraid now. She could no longer hold back her tears. She took a few steps back. She wanted to escape, but she tripped over a tree root and fell to the ground. Stop her. Don't let her get away. The few children rushed over immediately. Some even bent down to pick up the stones on the ground. They were about to throw them at the little girl. Shining frowned and silently stretched out a leg. The leader, the little fatty, suddenly fell forward and landed heavily on the ground. A bump the size of a fist appeared on his head. The little fatty was stunned for a moment. Perhaps it was because of the pain, but he let out a loud cry. The others were shocked. They looked at the little girl who was still on the ground in front of them, and then at the little fatty. It's her. It must be her. She's harming people again. Beat her too. Bam. Another child, who wanted to rush forward, tripped and fell to the ground as well. Following that, there were a few more bangs. The children who surrounded them all fell into a ball. One. Monster. Only then did the few of them realize the danger. They did not dare to rush forward anymore. As they retreated, they looked at the little girl in fear. She really is a monster. Run. In the blink of an eye, the few of them who were initially aggressive ran away. Bullying children was indeed addictive. The unlucky little girl finally got up. She looked around blankly. She seemed to have thought of something. Then she turned and limped back. Shining didn't think much of it. She didn't expect the little girl to sneak back to this remote tree that night. She took out half a sweet potato from somewhere and placed it on the ground. She then knelt down respectfully under the tree. You're an immortal, aren't you? She lowered her voice and said carefully to her surroundings, I heard from the big fatty's mother next door that as long as you are obedient, the immortal will protect you. The one who protected me in the day must be an immortal, right? She looked around excitedly as if she was looking for something. However, she did not find anything. She kowtowed 3 times obediently. Thank you, immortal. I will come often to worship you. So. Her voice deepened. She became even more nervous. After a while she squeezed out a sentence. Can you always protect me? After saying that, she kowtowed 3 more times, causing the stones on the ground to reverberate. I will be very obedient, very obedient. She waited quietly for a while. Seeing that there was still nothing out of the ordinary, she left reluctantly. Shining, she looked at the half a sweet potato left on the ground. That's why she hated children. But this child seemed to be addicted to giving things. What's more, there was no one else in her house. Every night she would come to the tree. Sometimes she would put half a sweet potato. Sometimes she would put half a radish or a bunch of unknown flowers. This night was even weirder. She brought a rock that was as tall as her calf. She even used a knife to carve something on it. Immortal, immortal. I heard from others that you have to write your name when worshipping immortals. Otherwise you won't be able to receive them. It wasn't easy for me to catch a fish. I learned these words from Brother Dejun. In the future you can receive my offerings. With that said, she put down a bunch of flowers and kowtowed 3 more times. Shining then saw the words written on the rock. Immortal who protected me. She had set up a tombstone for her. Motherf asterisk her. The child seemed to want to say something more. Suddenly the ground shook. The originally dark sky suddenly shone with thousands of rays of light. The entire sky was bright. Something fell from the sky. With a loud bang, it landed on the top of a mountain not far away. What the hell? Chapter 149. Immortal. Are you here? It must be. The child beside her was overjoyed. He stood up immediately and turned to run towards the top of the mountain. Shining frowned and looked at the top of the mountain. This light was immortal chi? Just as she was about to go over to take a look, she saw the stone tablet on the ground. She silently took a step back and stepped on it. With a crack, the stone tablet shattered into millions of pieces. That felt good. Satisfied, she floated over to the stone tablet. The little girl ran very quickly towards the top of the mountain. At this time, there was already a huge crater on the top of the mountain. More than half of the mountain had been flattened and dust was flying everywhere. Even half of the fields below had been destroyed. All the villagers were running away. Only that little figure was going against the flow. She finally climbed to the top of the mountain, panting heavily. But in front of her, there were all kinds of colorful lights and dust everywhere. She could not see the situation at all. There was silence all around. Only then did she start to feel nervous. In the end, her desire to see the immortal prevailed. She took a deep breath and walked in. Weakly she called out, "Immortal? Immortal?" Roar. As soon as she finished speaking, there was an angry roar. Suddenly, a huge figure appeared in front of her. A huge bloody mouth suddenly opened and a huge bloody aura rushed towards her. Ah! Only then did the little girl know fear. She cried out in shock. Her legs turned to jelly and she fell to the ground. She even forgot to run for her life. Only then did she see clearly that in front of her was a huge beast as tall as a mountain. It looked very ferocious and the sharp teeth in its mouth were even taller than her. It was walking towards her step by step. With every step it took, the ground shook. Suddenly, it jumped up and opened its mouth to bite her. The little girl was completely frightened. She froze on the spot and looked at the huge beast in front of her in horror. No, this was not an immortal. Just as she was about to be swallowed by it, the huge beast's body suddenly tilted. It seemed to have stepped on something. Its huge claws slipped and it fell with a crash. It directly rolled into the huge crater below. There was a loud poof and a huge cloud of dust was kicked up. Roar! Before the giant beast could even struggle, another huge figure suddenly took the opportunity to pounce towards the pit. With a cry, 2 sharp claws slashed down, and the sound of flapping wings could be heard. A sudden gust of wind blew away the dust in the surroundings, revealing the 2 giant beasts that were entangled in battle. It was a large bird covered in flames, and beneath it was a 4-legged beast. It had the head of a leopard, the tail of a snake, and the claws of an eagle. Its entire body was covered in scales, and it had sharp teeth that gleamed with a cold light. It seemed to be injured. Large pieces of scales had fallen off its body, and it was trampled to the ground by the firebird, unable to move. "Ha ha ha, Biao Ting, You dare to call yourself a celestial the arch with your puny cultivation level? I'm dying of laughter. The Firebird let out a series of mockery. I think you'd better go back to Wentian Cave and not come out to embarrass yourself. Qingzhe continent will belong to me. Crow. The giant beast struggled a few times, but no matter how hard it tried, it couldn't get rid of the other party's claws. It could only let out a series of low growls. You sanctimonious stinky bird, today I fell into your hands because of my negligence. If you want to kill me, then kill me. Humph. The Firebird used its wings to slap the other party, but it did not continue to attack. Instead, it took a few steps back. Immortal light flashed around it, and it turned into a man in a green robe. He glared coldly at the giant beast on the ground. Do you think I'm like those brainless beasts? I have no enmity with you, no enmity with you. Why did you suddenly want to destroy my Phoenix Palace? Pui. To think that you're a celestial the arch. If you hadn't shamelessly stolen my 6 fire pearl, I wouldn't even want to go to your stupid place. Biao Ting gritted his teeth. You're heartless and I'm unjust. Destroying your nest is a small matter. Who stole your 6 fire pearl? Crow's expression turned cold. I don't care about that stupid pearl of yours. Don't try to deny it. Biao Ting was even more furious. You flying beasts have always liked to collect eye-catching things. Do you think you lack pearls in your stupid nest? What's more, among the 10 celestial thearchs, only you are fire elemental. If you didn't steal it, who else could it be? You dared to do it, but you don't dare to admit it. If you don't kill me this time, I will definitely make you pay next time. Forget it if you don't believe me. I didn't take your pearl anyway. Crow was getting angry. Do whatever you want. You're just a loser. Do you think I'm afraid of you? With that said, he plucked a strand of whiskers from the side of his mouth. Biao Ting was furious, but he did not lunge forward because of his injuries. In a flash, he transformed into a black-robed man. He glared angrily at the other party. Don't think that I can't beat you. If not for the fact that someone got in the way today and distracted me, I wouldn't have. He seemed to have thought of something. He turned to glare at the little girl sitting on the ground not far away. His eyes widened and he was instantly enraged. He looked like he was going to eat her up. It's all this despicable mortal's fault. The little girl trembled. She finally remembered to escape. She scrambled to her feet, but it was too late. Biao Ting reached out a hand. Instantly, a huge amount of immortal qi attacked the other party. Then he tightened his grip. The little figure flew into the air and flew uncontrollably into his hand. Biao Ting grabbed the child by the neck. The little girl struggled with all her might, but she could not even touch his sleeve. How could a mortal hurt someone from the immortal world? Moreover, she was just a child. Her heart was filled with fear. Tears flowed out of her eyes. She used all her strength to squeeze out a few words. Divine. Divine Immortal, please protect me, Divine Immortal? Hearing her words, Biao Ting laughed coldly. I'm the Divine Immortal you speak of. The little girl was stunned. She looked like she was about to die. Suddenly, her eyes widened and she glared at him. She did not know where she got the strength from, but she began to kick and hit him. No, you're not. Liar. Her Divine Immortal was not like this. It wasn't. Humph, you're just an ant. Biao Ting ignored her struggles. He tightened his grip and was about to strangle her to death. Wait. The Firebird Blackbird suddenly shouted and grabbed his hand. What, you still want to fight me? Biao Ting looked at him warily and said mockingly, Don't tell me you really want to be a Divine Immortal and save this mortal? Don't forget, although you've been an immortal for a long time, you're still a demon. This child? Crow ignored him. Instead, he looked at the child in his hand carefully. He seemed to have discovered something and his eyes narrowed. Biao Ting hesitated. He also sensed that something was amiss. He loosened his grip and let the child fall to the ground. She coughed violently as if she was going to faint the next moment. Biao Ting did not care. He directed a bit of immortal qi and tapped it on the child's forehead. The sudden intrusion of immortal qi caused the little girl to scream again. Her entire body was in so much pain that she curled up into a ball. She has a purine body. Biao Ting's face flashed with surprise. He chuckled. This is a good material for purifying deviant flames. With that said, he looked at Crow with some wariness. Don't tell me you want it too. What? Do you think you can snatch it from me in your current state? Crow laughed coldly. Biao Ting was stumped. The hatred on his face deepened, but he could only grit his teeth and bear with it. He lowered his head and glared at the child on the ground. Crow picked up the child in front of Biao Ting. Although this mortal did not have an immortal bone and could not withstand many deviant flames, she was still a rare material and could not be wasted. He looked up at the realm gate that was about to close. Biao-ting, I'll let you off this time. If you dare to cause trouble in my Phoenix Palace again, don't blame me for being rude. With that said, he flew towards the realm gate in the sky. Biao-ting gritted his teeth in anger, but he had no choice but to bear with it. He took a deep breath and flew up as well. Only the little girl who had been suddenly picked up looked terrified. Tears flowed uncontrollably as she struggled with all her might. No, let go of me. Help, immortal. I have an immortal protecting me. I have an immortal. Do you hear me? Stop arguing. Blackbird frowned impatiently. If you obediently become my material, you can live for a few more days. I am an immortal. In the 3 realms, no one can save you from what I, Crow, have set my eyes on. Is that so? Just as he finished speaking, a lazy voice sounded beside him. Strangely, he trembled. Chapter 150. Before Blackbird could react, he felt a heavy weight on his leg. A gust of wind blew past his ears, and he was pulled down by a huge force. He crashed into Biao-ting, who was flying up from below. With a loud crash, the two of them fell back into the huge pit. This time the whole mountain collapsed. Who's there? Blackbird roared. His body flashed red and he turned into his original form. He was a huge bird covered in flames. He looked up angrily, but he saw nothing. In the air, only the child that was still in her hand was slowly floating down from the clouds. Divine. Immortal? The little girl was stunned. She was overjoyed and looked around excitedly. Immortal, you're here, aren't you? You're here to protect me again? I knew worshipping you would be useful. Shining, who had finally found her way up, not to mention that she could still be friends with those worshippers. Immortal, why can't I see you? I forgot to remind you. Shining carried the child to an empty space at the side and said slowly, I hate vegetables. The child was stunned. His little face frowned and he looked aggrieved. Don't give me any more in the future, but... Shining turned to look at the bird and beast. The 2 little animals you gave me are not bad. Do you know how to roast meat? The child, the little animal *2. For some reason, Blackbird felt a chill run down his spine. Unfortunately, no matter how much he released his divine perception, he could not see the person speaking. He could only open his mouth and spit out a stream of true life flames in the direction of the little girl. Who are you? How dare you speak so arrogantly? Just as he was about to spit out a stream of flames, he felt a sharp pain on his head. His open mouth seemed to be pressed down by something and was forced to close it. The true life flames that he was about to spit out had already taken shape, but it was blocked in his mouth. He could not go in or out. The flames rebounded and burned all the way from his mouth to his organs. Yet he could not open his mouth to cry out in pain. He could only roll on the ground, whimpering. He tried to use all the immortal chi in his body to struggle, but found that his mouth was locked in place. He could not move an inch. In the next moment, the ground beneath him was empty, and his huge figure was instantly lifted up by something. Before it could react, a gust of wind blew past its ears, and with a bang, it crashed into the ground again. It wasn't over yet. Its entire body had completely lost control. It was lifted up and smashed down again and again, lifted up and smashed down again and again, lifted up and smashed down again. The entire world reverberated with the sounds of smashing. Blackbird, who felt like a hammer, and Biao-ting, who was being hammered, they were simply powerless to resist. The key was that from the beginning to the end, they couldn't see the person who made the move. It was too terrifying. Who was it? A minute later, the entire hall was silent. A certain someone suddenly thought of a problem. Isn't it necessary to pluck the feathers first before roasting the meat? The Heavenly Emperor duo who played dead is identical. No. Immortal World, Upper Capital City. The emperors of the 7 countries gathered at the Palace of War Cessation. Immortal Emperor Guyu sat on the main seat, while the other emperors sat in 2 rows below him. There were 3 immortal emperors and 4 young emperors. Guyu scanned the group of people coolly. His eyes narrowed as he said casually, why isn't young Emperor Sun Shu here? Exalted Emperor Gu, you know that young Emperor Sun has always been a loner. The immortal emperor sitting on the right snorted coldly. He doesn't give face to anyone. In previous years, when Exalted Emperor invited us to the War Cessation Immortal Gathering, didn't he always turn up? That's right. Another young emperor sitting below him was also full of disdain, as if he couldn't stand Sun Shu's lack of respect. Young Emperor Sun is obviously a young emperor, but unlike us he can't build a country and become an emperor. Why does he have to hole up in his tiny immortal abode and pretend that he doesn't care about worldly affairs? This is an immortal gathering for the emperors of the various countries. It doesn't matter if he doesn't turn up. Sigh. Guyu sighed and said worriedly, "Everyone, it seems like young Emperor Sun has misunderstood that I tried to stop him at the Lofty River a while ago. That's why he didn't turn up." Lofty River. Everyone was shocked. They were all immortals who had lived for tens of thousands of years, so they immediately understood the meaning behind his words. They all looked at him and asked, "Exalted Emperor, what do you mean?" This matter was just a misunderstanding. Guyu's eyes flashed and he sighed again. "Everyone knows that although I'm not a sword immortal, I often send people from my sect to Yufeng Immortal Abode to train. Although they say they're searching for a sword, their main purpose is to train their subordinates. Coincidentally, one of the people I sent earlier met young Emperor in the immortal domain. What's more, that sword immortal accidentally found a divine artifact, which young Emperor obtained. I was supposed to receive the sword immortal, but I didn't expect to meet young Emperor Sun at the Lofty River. He thought that I was trying to steal the sword, so there was a misunderstanding. A divine artifact, and a sword at that." Everyone looked at each other and seemed to have thought of something at the same time. They asked anxiously, "Exalted Emperor Guyu, the divine artifact that you found is—" "That's right, the six-joint sword." Guyu nodded. "What?" The few of them were in an uproar. "It's really the six-joint sword? I didn't expect the legends to be true." "That's a divine artifact that can split open the heavens. Young Emperor Sun is too stingy. He obtained such a divine artifact without saying a word." "That's right. He even misunderstood that Exalted Emperor Guyu was trying to steal his sword. I bet he stole the sword from someone else. Isn't it said that only celestial emperors have the right to wield divine artifacts? He's just a young emperor. What right does he have to wield the six-joint sword? He's a sword immortal, and now he has a divine artifact. Why would he care about us?" The more they spoke, the more outrageous and furious they became. It was as if Sun Shu had really done something unforgivable. They looked like they were gathering to demand justice. Guyu's expression darkened. He had purposely revealed the news. He had expected this outcome. Who wouldn't want a divine artifact like that? So what if he had found the six-joint sword? He was only capable if he could protect it. With such a divine artifact in his hands, how could others not covet it? If he couldn't have it, he naturally wouldn't want others to have it. Besides, I think we should report this to the Celestial Emperor. Finally, an immortal emperor suggested. The six-joint sword is no ordinary divine artifact. Perhaps the key to ascending from the immortal realm lies in this sword. This sword is indeed not suitable for young Emperor Sun to keep. That's right. This is a serious matter. We should let Celestial Emperor Qinggu make the final decision. Everyone agreed. All the emperors are right. Guyu nodded in agreement. But I heard that the Celestial Emperor has already gone into seclusion. The immortal Rainbow Palace has been closed to visitors for thousands of years. None of the immortals who have gone to the heavens beyond heaven have seen the Celestial Emperor. How should we report this? Everyone frowned at the thought. After a moment of silence, one of the immortal emperors spoke. It's not good to disturb the Celestial Emperor's cultivation. But this was no small matter. If the other Celestial Emperors heard about it, it would be difficult for them not to covet it. If our Fengtsang continent misses out on this sword, it will be our fault. Why don't? That person looked at the crowd and continued, "The 8 of us go to the heavens beyond heaven and request to see the Celestial Emperor to report this matter. I'm sure he will meet us." Everyone nodded in agreement. Guyu's heart was filled with satisfaction. Everything was progressing in the direction he had planned. The immortal Rainbow Palace had been closed for thousands of years. He had long guessed that something was amiss. Recently, he received news that Celestial Emperor Qinggu was not even in the palace. He might not even be in the heavens beyond heaven. In the immortal realm, the heavens beyond heaven had the densest immortal qi. It was impossible for a celestial emperor to leave the heavens beyond heaven. If Qinggu was not there, there was only one possibility. Something had happened to him. As long as this group of people went to the immortal Rainbow Palace, they would discover this. Fengtsang continent no longer had a celestial emperor. Naturally, they had to support someone to ascend. He had the highest cultivation level among all the countries. This was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. It was a chance for him to rise to the top. As long as he went up, he would not allow Chenggu to return to his previous position. He had planned this for so long. Success or failure depended on this one move. He could not afford to make any mistakes. Guyu was excited. He took a deep breath to calm himself down. He stood up and said in a low voice, "If that's the case, let's..." Bam. Before he could finish his words, the entire hall suddenly shook, and a big hole appeared on the top of his head with a loud bang. The isolation formation in the hall was broken, and a white figure suddenly appeared in the hall. He pointed the long sword in his hand at the person of the first seat, and said word by word, "Release my master sorcery or I will kill you." Chapter 151. "It's you," Guyu exclaimed. He stared at I Ching in disbelief. He was still alive. The poison on the winter spirit leaf could only last for 4 months. But he did not seem to be poisoned at all. How could this be? Guyu panicked, but considering the people present, he did not show it. On the other hand, the other people in the room glared angrily at the person in the middle after their initial shock. What a shameless boast. Where did this little immortal come from? How dare he act so presumptuously in front of the exalted emperors? Who are you? How dare you barge into the palace of war cessation? A mere exalted immortal dares to challenge exalted Emperor Gu? I want to see what you're capable of. Exalted Emperor Guyu, why don't I help you deal with this disrespectful junior? Exalted emperors. Guyu was overjoyed. He had already calmed down. So what if this person had discovered the poison on the winter spirit leaf? Who would believe a mere immortal like him? I believe this fellow immortal has some misunderstandings about me. Why don't we peacefully? Before he could finish, I Ching's figure flashed and a huge wave of sword chi flew towards him. It was so overwhelming that even he had to turn and dodge. His figure flashed as he left the seat of honor. Looking back, he saw that I Ching had cleaved a huge hole in the main hall. Half of it had collapsed. Even the country emperors had to fly out of the main hall on their swords. Guyu's eyes widened in shock. The immortal palace was covered in arrays and the materials used to construct it were not ordinary. Yet, he had managed to destroy half of the palace with a single strike of his sword. Was he really an exalted immortal? His heart sank as an inexplicable sense of foreboding welled up in his heart. Fellow immortal I Ching, let's talk this out. What? Wait you. Before he could finish, I Ching swung the sword in his hand. The second strike was already upon him. The sharp sword chi once again filled the entire immortal palace. The other party had no choice but to stop talking and fight with all his might. If there was one thing he had learned from his masters many years, it was this: who would argue with you when you can fight? Cripple him first. Come and fight. At that moment, the entire palace of war cessation was filled with the glow of spells and terrifying sword chi. The other monarchs looked at the two of them who started fighting without saying a word. After all, they were invited here. It would be inexcusable if they did not help. Hence, the 7 of them had no choice but to join the battle. The deafening noises and the radiance of the spell became even more intense, so bright that people couldn't open their eyes. 3 hours later, 1,000 miles away. Lone Moon almost flew day and night to Shangdu. He was afraid that a certain someone would act rashly and create a mess that he could not fix. He was anxious and wanted to curse. However, I Ching usually looked dull, but when he was excited he ran very fast. No matter how hard he tried, he couldn't catch up. On top of that, there was no teleportation formation to Xanadu. He had to fly by himself for transportation. Fellow immortal Lone Moon, don't worry too much. Given I Ching's cultivation level, he won't get into trouble so easily. Compared to Lone Moon, Sun Shu was much more relaxed. Given I Ching's cultivation level, nothing will happen to him so easily. He had been wanting to kill Guyu for a long time, but he had never found a good reason to do so. Now that someone else had taken over the job, he was naturally happy to see it happen. I hope so. Lone Moon was still worried. He had a bad feeling about this. Suddenly, he noticed the immortals flying past him. He frowned. Why are there so many immortals leaving the city? Each of them seemed to be in a hurry, as if they were running away from something. Their numbers kept increasing. It looked like they were flying from Shangdu. Sun Shu also noticed the immortals flying past him. Looking around, he stepped forward to stop a familiar immortal. What's going on? What's wrong with you guys? Yeah, Emperor Sun. The immortal paused and bowed to Sun Shu. Something happened in Shangdu. Someone broke into the Palace of War Cessation and they're fighting there. To avoid being implicated, the immortals left the city. Sun Shu was overjoyed. It looked like I Ching was already beating up that despicable Guyu. Not bad. He broke into the immortal palace so quickly. He was indeed a sword immortal. But, even if Guyu is fighting someone in Shangdu, you don't have to run out of the city, do you? Shangdu was an immortal city after all. It had more than one or two defensive arrays. Even if it was a battle between immortal emperors, the battle would at most be within the boundaries of the Palace of War Cessation. It would not affect the entire immortal city. Why would they run so far away? No. There's more than one emperor. What? Sun Shu did not understand. Suddenly there was a loud crash in front of them. Something was attacking them from thousands of miles away. It spread in all directions. They heard a few rustling sounds as it brushed past their faces. The two of them subconsciously conjured a seal and set up a defensive array. Only then did they manage to block the overwhelming immortal pressure. The immortal who was stopped by Sun Shu turned pale and continued to fly into the distance. Sun Shu sensed carefully and realized that it was Sword Qi. So far away. Releasing his divine perception, he saw that half the sky in the direction of Shangdu had been swallowed up by different colored lights. He could also faintly sense dozens of immortal auras. Apart from I Ching and Guyu, there was also, what's going on? Lonman's expression darkened. Sun Shu paused, then suddenly remembered something. He lowered his head and calculated. His face turned pale. I actually forgot that today is the day of the Jigu Immortal Gathering. Right now, apart from Guyu, there are also the emperors of various countries in Shangdu. There are a total of 8 immortal lords who have ascended to become emperors. Damn. Why didn't you say so earlier? Lone Moon panicked. He turned around and used the fastest speed he could muster to activate the immortal sword beneath him. He sped towards Shangdu, but no matter how fast he flew, it still took him more than 10 minutes to reach Shangdu. He was shocked by the scene in front of him. The once beautiful and majestic immortal city in the sky was gone. In front of him was a pile of rubble. Broken walls were everywhere, floating in the air like meteorites. Even the huge city gate had been split into two, leaving only half of it floating in the air. Traces of sword qi and immortal spells could be seen everywhere in the city. There was not a single building left intact. There was not a single immortal in the city. The light from the spells had also disappeared. It was obvious that the battle was over. Where was he? Lone Moon panicked and flew directly towards the Jigu Palace. He released his divine perception and found I Ching among the rubble. He saw that he was standing on a collapsed wall. His originally white robes had been dyed red. He was covered in blood. If not for the familiar aura, he would not have recognized that it was I Ching. In his hand was a sword that was faintly discernible, formed by the condensation of immortal qi. His feet were stepping on a pile of flesh and blood. He was asking something word by word, but his voice was as cold as ice. There were several corpses lying around him. Some were buried in the grass, some were hanging from trees, and some were crushed by rocks so that only half their heads remained. Their auras were very weak. If he did not release his divine perception, he would not have been able to detect them. Lone Moon, Sun Shu, he had won the fight. 1 against 8. And they were all immortal level experts. What kind of freaking pervert are you? Chapter 152. The corner of Lone Moon's mouth twitched. He suddenly felt the urge to turn around and leave. He had had enough of being controlled by the cheat. He took a few deep breaths to regain his composure. He flew down and landed beside the bloody cheat. Hey chef. Are you still alive? Lone Moon was just about to speak when he heard Fang Jing say, Tell me, how do you undo my master's spell? Guyu, who was lying on the ground in a terrible state, did not answer. Instead, he spat out a mouthful of blood like a fountain. I'll ask you again. How do you undo it? I Ching's foot landed on Guyu's body, and Guyu spat out even more blood. The corner of Lone Moon's mouth twitched. Guyu was injured so badly, yet you were still trying to extort a confession. You were indeed a cheat. More importantly, King moved your foot away and let him speak. You've already crushed his chest, so how is he supposed to reply? Indeed, in the next moment, Guyu's head tilted to the side and he fainted. I Ching, calm down. Lone Moon took a step forward and said, If you continue like this, he'll really die. We won't be able to get any answers then. But master. I Ching looked at Sun Shu anxiously. There's no point in panicking. Besides, didn't Sun Shu say that the spell does not harm his body? Lone Moon continued. Even if you kill him now, there's no use. I Ching paused and retracted his foot from Guyu's body. Guyu's body, which had been standing upright, swayed and looked like it was about to collapse. Be careful. Sun Shu reached out to help Guyu up. He checked Guyu's meridians and his eyes widened. You're still alive. Lone Moon was shocked and immediately grabbed the meridian of his other hand. Only then did he realize that all the meridians in his body were already in a mess. The immortal qi in his body was also completely used up. His dantian was smashed into pieces and his immortal bones were broken in several places. Any later and he would not even have been able to pick up a spatula. Instead of resting, Guyu was trying to extort a confession out of him. He was crazy. Do you have a F***king brain? Lone Moon felt his anger explode. He pointed at Guyu and scolded, if you can't do it, just retreat, understand? Is there anyone like you who goes all out in a fight? You should learn from Xin Ying's tendency to get into trouble. Why don't you learn from her shameless ways? I Ching turned around instantly and glared at him with an icy glare. While suppressing the surging qi and blood, he gritted his teeth and said, don't slander master. *CK. Could this retarded fan get better? He took a deep breath, suppressed his anger and said, if you don't want to die, hurry up and adjust your breathing. He sat down cross-legged, but his eyes were looking at the bloody mess that had completely stopped moving. Don't worry. He's already in this state. He can't run away. Only then did he close his eyes and begin to regulate his breathing. I Ching's injuries were indeed too serious this time. Although it wasn't enough to damage his foundation, he was fighting against immortal emperor-level immortals after all. What's more, he was fighting against 8 immortal emperors at once. He could only say that it was a miracle that he was still alive. Before his immortal bones recovered, he would not be able to use his sword qi. I Ching and Sun Shu set up several array formations around him. The two of them worked together and spent a whole 6 hours before they barely managed to repair most of I Ching's meridians. Lone Moon picked up the still unconscious Guyu. Let's go back first. We'll ask him how to wake Shining up when he wakes up. Just as he was about to fly on his sword, the transmission amulet beside him suddenly lit up. He subconsciously took it out and sent a bit of immortal qi into it. Instantly, Yu Hong's voice sounded in his head. He froze. Did something happen in the sect? Sun Shu asked curiously. No. Lone Moon's expression was a little complicated. He looked down at the person in his hands. Yu Hong said, Shining is awake. The next moment there was a whoosh and I Ching had disappeared. Sun Shu, Lone Moon, Shining suddenly remembered that she was a floater and could not eat, so she gave up on the barbecue. Thinking about how long she had been out, it was time to go back and eat. Just as she was about to float, the little girl beside her seemed to sense something and began to panic. Divine Immortal, are you leaving? She ran straight over but tripped over a withered branch on the ground. Her running turned into a roll and with a grunt she rolled to the bottom of a tree. A bloody gash appeared on her face. But she did not seem to care. She looked directly at the trembling bird on the ground and said, Don't you want to protect me anymore? I'll be very obedient. Xin Ying's mouth twitched. Was this little imp pestering her? How troublesome. If she sneaked away she wouldn't be discovered, right? But the little girl burst into tears. Divine Immortal. Divine Immortal, don't leave me, all right? Everyone doesn't like me. Father and mother are gone, I only have you. Don't leave me, all right? Divine Immortal, Divine Immortal. There was no response for a long time. The little girl became even more flustered. She wandered around but could not find the person she was looking for. Mustering her courage, she directly climbed onto the bird's body, which had long been extinguished. Clattering noisily, she searched everywhere. As she stepped on it, she cried out with tears in her eyes, Divine Immortal, Divine Immortal. Don't go, sob, sob, sob. Don't leave me. Thinking that she was protected by the exalted god, Wu Hong calmly pretended to be dead at first. A few kicks from a mortal would not cause him much harm, until she stepped on a certain unspeakable part. Roar, Wu Hong's body exploded instantly, and he flipped the little girl off. He immediately transformed back into human form, but with his legs crossed, he clutched his midsection and curled up like a shrimp. Instantly enraged, he glared at the little girl at the side. You little imp, you're really what? Shining suddenly interrupted. Blackbird shuddered. Only then did he remember the current situation. His face, which had just turned red, instantly turned pale. His mouth twitched violently a few times before he smiled stiffly and said, Really, kind, good and lovable. That hurt so much. Why was he so unlucky? If not for the fact that his protective immortal qi had been broken, and his immortal bones had been broken. How could he have been injured by a mortal in that kind of place? Sob, 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 sob. He was tainted by a mortal. He felt as if his entire demon life was no longer pure. Divine immortal. The little girl climbed up with a face full of joy. She opened her arms and pounced towards the right, as if she wanted to hug something. I knew you would come back. Seeing that the little girl was about to pounce into the pit, Xinying's mouth twitched. Finally, she could not help but reach out and pull the little girl back. I'm here. Where should she go? Divine immortal? Only then did she stop and turn to the left. It's this way. Xinying turned the little girl around. Little shorty, do you really want to follow me? Yes, yes, yes. The little girl sniffled and nodded vigorously. Then you won't be able to come back in the future and it will be very hard. I'm not afraid. Her little fists were clenched tightly, her expression determined. AI so troublesome. She turned to look at the foot of the mountain, at the small mountain village that had been buried in a large piece of land. Thinking of a certain person's attribute of bringing misfortune, she frowned. She hoped that Father Nyo would not go berserk. Hey, that bird. She turned to look at the green-robed man beside her. The bird is here. Blackbird raised a hand weakly. And the one who is pretending to be dead. She turned to look at the bottom of the pit. The huge black beast at the bottom of the pit trembled and had no choice but to turn back into human form with tears in its eyes. Exalted, exalted, exalted goddess, do you have any orders? The little girl's health is not good. It's not convenient for me to bring her back to the immortal realm. Both of you send this little shorty safely to Chu Shuang City's invincible sect. She glanced at the two of them. I want to see her in 3 days, otherwise, haha. Although they could not see each other, the two of them trembled subconsciously and immediately replied in unison, Yes, exalted goddess. No problem, exalted goddess. Xinying then closed her eyes and disappeared from where she stood. Exalted goddess? Exalted goddess? Blackbird called out a few times but there was no response. Only then did he realize that Xinying had left and his face fell. Exalted goddess, you still haven't told us which continent in the immortal realm Chu Shuang City is in. Degree. Chapter 153. 5 days later, Xinying had just finished the lunch made by the rainbow group of girls and was poking at the dessert on the table. Although the taste was not as good as chef's, overall it was not bad. Just as she was wondering if she should ask them to make more, a figure landed in front of her. Master. Hey chef. Xinying was delighted. She moved the dessert on the table to the side and pretended that she had not eaten. You're back. You're all right? I Ching looked straight at the person in front of the table, not daring to blink. She hesitated. What could I have? Before she could finish, the other party rushed over like the wind. She felt her hands tighten and in the next moment she fell into his arms. A little stuffy. Just as she was about to push him away, she heard a low voice that sounded like he was about to cry. You're all right? That's great. That's great. What's wrong? Chef. Before she could ask, the person who was hugging her just now suddenly went limp and slid down. Hey, are you all right? She caught him and found that he had already fainted. Only then did she notice that he was actually covered in blood and had wounds all over his body. It was not just a little bit of a mess. Xinying frowned. Why was it that every time she saw Chef after a period of time, he would turn into such a wretched state? I Ching, you flew a little too king fast. Lone Moon and Sun Shu descended from the clouds, panting. They looked into the courtyard and saw Xinying. Lone Moon then heaved a sigh of relief. Indeed, the scourge lives for 1,000 years. He really woke up. Father Nyo, what happened to Chef? Xinying asked as she supported the fainted Chef. What else could have happened? Lone Moon glared at her with a look of resentment. He stepped forward to help her support him. As he checked his pulse, he replied, there was something wrong with his brain. He thought that you wouldn't wake up, so he ran all the way to the capital and fought with 8 people who had already ascended to the emperor level. Then, Xinying tilted her head. Did he win? The corner of Lone Moon's mouth twitched. Was that the point? You should at least have some self-awareness as a master. Shouldn't your normal reaction be to scold him? Instead, Sun Shu hurriedly added, we won. Oh, that's good. Good my ass. Can't you be normal for even once? Lone Moon resisted the urge to tear her apart with his bare hands. He helped the man up from the ground. His injuries are too serious. I think he'll be unconscious for a while. Send him back to the house first. After saying those words, he and Sun Shu helped the young man back into the room and carefully examined his injuries before heaving a sigh of relief. How is it? Shining asked. I'm fine. I've only been flying for a few days and my body is empty of immortal energy. I'm just too tired. I'll be fine after a few days. Oh. Speaking of which. He turned to glare at her and said, what happened to you these past few days? Since you can wake up on your own, it proves that you are not afraid of the soul detachment technique at all, right? What technique? What was that? Weren't you under a spell? No. Then how did your divine sense? Oh, I've always had the habit of sleepwalking, Shining said nonchalantly. But I really didn't want to move. Every time I slept, I would think of the client you tricked in the capital. As I thought about it, I became ethereal. Client? Shujiang. So you're saying, you weren't under the soul detachment spell? That's right. Lone Moon, Sun Shu, everyone, they all looked at the man on the bed and thought of the 8 people who were beaten like dogs in the capital. They wanted to light a row of candles for them. Then where did your divine sense go these past few days? Why did you only wake up now? I went to the mortal realm. What? Lone Moon paused. Just as he was about to ask, Siyu suddenly walked in. Reporting to Sect Master, 2 people brought a child to the mountain gate. They said. Sect Master asked them to come. Oh, that's right. Shining nodded and asked Siyu to bring the child up. As he walked out, he briefly recounted what had happened in the mortal world. Father Nyo's expression darkened. He glared daggers at her. So, you found another freeloader? You even brought her back? Father Nyo, have some compassion. Didn't you do charity work often in the past? Lone Moon chuckled but did not object. Let's see how talented she is first. If she was weak, he would immediately throw her back to the lower realm. The few of them had just sat down for a while when Siyu led the child over from afar. After not seeing her for a few days, the little girl seemed to have grown a lot taller. She looked about 12 or 13 years old. She was no longer dressed in rags. Instead, she was dressed very exquisitely. It seemed like the 2 little animals treated her well. But her eyes were still timid, like a rabbit that would be startled at any time. Lone Moon frowned. He did not know why, but he did not like it. Only then did the child raise her head to look at the crowd. Perhaps because she did not see anyone familiar, she shuddered and took a step back reflexively. However, her foot suddenly turned and she fell forward, hitting the ground with a bang. Siyu was shocked. She was just about to bend over to help her up when the child raised her head. Her little head knocked into her outstretched arm. The immortal chi around her immediately repelled the child. She hurriedly held her head. Her body tilted again. With a grunt, she actually rolled all the way to the front of the crowd. With a loud thud, she hit the stone table that the few of them were sitting on. Several bumps appeared on her head. Even his originally exquisite clothes were now dirty from the rolling. The crowd, the corner of Xin Ying's mouth twitched. This bad luck belonged to the original shorty in the mortal realm. I'm sorry. I didn't do it on purpose. The child touched the bump on her head and looked up even more frantically. Her eyes were watery. She looked like she was about to cry but was trying her best to hold it in. The uncle who sent her here said that she had to be good and obedient in order to see the immortal who would protect her. Just this child? Lone Moon reached out to hold the child's arm. He wanted to help her up, but for some reason his hand slipped. There was a ripping sound. There was only a piece of cloth left in his hand. The child instantly lost her balance. With a thud, she hit the stone table again. Great, another bump. Lone Moon. Immediately, several pairs of eyes turned to look at him. What are you looking at? The corner of his mouth twitched. Why are you all looking at me like I'm bullying a child? I didn't do it on purpose. The clothes she was wearing were Dharma robes, weren't they? Why was it so easily torn? He hurriedly conjured a spell to help her up. I said, this child is a little special. Shining explained. She was especially unlucky. As soon as she said this, the child in front of her suddenly jumped. She looked up at her, her eyes widening. Surprise and joy flooded her eyes. Immortal. Immortal? You're an immortal. This voice, there was no mistaking it. As if she could not hold it in any longer, tears flowed out of her eyes. In an instant she was covered in tears. She turned around and threw herself at Shining. Immortal, immortal, air. Don't tell me I have to wipe it on her? The one who had just changed her clothes said. Don't be rude to the sect master. At the critical moment, Yu Hong reached out to stop her and carried the child a few steps away. Although she might be their little junior sister in the future, they still had to follow the rules. They had not hugged her before. The child looked at Shining, then at Yu Hong, who was holding her back. She had grown up after all. She wiped her tears hard and stepped back obediently. But her eyes were still like searchlights, staring straight at Shining. Good girl. Shining patted her head. Child, come here. Lone Moon waved at her and said seriously, although you were brought back by Shining, if you want to enter my invincible sect, we still have to look at your potential. With that said, he bent his finger and touched her forehead. He released his divine perception to check her spirit root. Water spirit root. He thought of something and frowned. He hurriedly pulled her hand to check her spirit root. Instantly, his expression darkened. Holy shit. Purine body. Shining, you're F*** causing trouble. Chapter 154. Don't mind the details. Is it a matter of the details? Lone Moon was getting irritated. This kind of constitution was troublesome. She actually wanted to bring her back. No, I don't agree. Why? Is there a need to ask? He glared at her. Let's not talk about how troublesome it is. Her spirit root is naturally weak and is not suitable for body tempering. How can she cultivate with everyone else? To become a body cultivator is simply... He paused mid-sentence, suddenly remembering something. He glanced at the child beside him and thought of the golden Barbies in the sect. Wait, why did he instinctively think of her as a body cultivator? Didn't he always want to break the curse of the body cultivator sect? This was a ready-made opportunity. Although the water spirit root was not suitable for sword cultivation, pill cultivation, talisman cultivation, beast taming and dharma cultivation were all suitable. Although the purine constitution was troublesome, it was not as bad in the immortal realm as it was in the mortal realm. Spirit chi could be plucked, but immortal chi could not. Moreover, with Cheat Shin around, it was easy to protect the child. So, for the development of the sect, this child had to be taken in. Child, are you willing to learn Dharma talismans and array diagrams? With that said, he added, let me say this first, no one in the sect is proficient in these. You have to figure it out yourself. The little girl paused and glanced at Shining before replying timidly, if I learn, can I stay? She only wanted to follow the immortal. Of course. She nodded vigorously. I'll learn. Alright, since that's the case, I won't object. Lone Moon glanced at Shining. He thought about where to start teaching her. He must not be led astray by the other disciples. He asked casually, oh yes, what's your name? Name. The little girl was stunned for a moment. She lowered her head and thought for a long time. It had been too long and she couldn't remember it clearly. After she was 3 years old, everyone just called her Jinx. Later on, her parents said that they had to go far away and never came back. No one called her by her name anymore. She could only vaguely remember, Mother? Seems to call me? Tonger? Oh, then what's your surname? Lone Moon picked up the teacup on the table. Surname. She tried hard to remember. This time she took a longer time before replying, Xian? My name is Xian Tong. Puff. Lone Moon spat out a mouthful of water and his face turned as black as ink. Holy shit. Declare. Tong. He stood up abruptly and picked up the child from the ground. He took 2 quick steps and threw the child to see you. Enunciating each word, he said, throw him back down the mountain. Everyone. Lone Moon looked at the foodie who was about to bury herself in the bowl and laughed coldly. He succeeded in making the other person freeze for a moment before saying, I'll give you a chance to explain. Air. The corner of Xinying's mouth twitched. She had no choice but to put down the bowl she was holding. Scratching her head, she said, well, if I told you that I didn't know she was your female lead from the start, would you believe me? Lone Moon only threw out 2 words, hee. What did he mean by his female lead? I really don't know. Then why did you let her stay? Lone Moon exploded instantly. Do you know how troublesome the male and female leads are? It wasn't easy for me to send away a guy, but you're good. You turned around and brought back a female lead. Shining sighed and looked at him saying, she's a child. To hell with a child. She's a child now, but she won't be in the future. The more Lone Moon thought about it, the more anxious he became. She's the female lead. Does the female lead know? I've said it before, the male and female leads are a combination of trouble. Whoever meets them will be unlucky. Stay as far away from them as possible. Just look at these 2 days. The sect has lost 3 arrays for Dharma artifacts and 5 Dharma talismans. Even the courtyard she's staying in temporarily has a hole in it. If she really grows up, according to the development of the plot, I don't know how she'll. Father Nyo. Xining suddenly interrupted him. Looking straight at him, she said, apart from being unlucky, what did she do wrong? Lone Moon paused. Reflexively he replied, she's the female in the plot. Then what about now? Now. He paused. Now of course, it hasn't happened yet. So you're going to convict her for something that didn't happen. But, is that plot really that important? It's important, right? What? Is there a need to ask? Lone Moon blurted out. That's something that will happen in the future. Of course. Oh, then are you sure that the plot is really in the future? Then when? He stopped mid-sentence. Suddenly he remembered something. Wait. It seemed, the plot wasn't that accurate? According to the timeline in the novel, the male lead was still a child at this time. The female lead couldn't possibly appear at this time. Especially the male lead's identity. Even in the novel's ending, it wasn't stated that he was Celestial Emperor Qin. It seemed that from the moment Xining appeared, the plot had already been messed up. Father Nyo. Xining sighed. If this child wasn't someone in the plot, would you have let her live? Lone Moon was stumped. Because he would have. You said you wanted an explanation. Then let me tell you, I met this child by chance. A child who was abandoned by everyone, even her family. She looked so pitiful, so I helped her. It was that simple. There was no other reason. As for what she would become in the future, I really don't know. But before everyone does good things, they have to investigate to see if the other party will do bad things in the future? Lone Moon couldn't answer. Indeed, because of the plot, he had a prejudice against the male and female leads from the start. Even though he knew that the plot was completely different from what he knew, he was still filled with hatred towards those people. All because of a future that he didn't know was accurate or not. You always say that they are the male and female leads in the plot. But the one who really lives in the plot is you. Lone Moon was stunned. Suddenly he felt a chill in his heart. Thinking about it carefully, indeed, whether it was Xining or I Ching, they never seemed to care about the plot that he knew. Only he always tried his best to avoid getting involved, even though those things didn't happen. Only he stayed in the vortex of the plot and didn't go out. Instantly he felt as if someone had hit him on the head with a stick. Something that had been troubling him for a long time suddenly became clear in his mind. What's more? Xining leaned back on the recliner and became a pile of mud again. She said lazily, if that little shorty really grows up to be what you said, a brainless female lead in love, we can still break her legs. Lone Moon's mouth stiffened. Black lines appeared on his forehead. Can you be serious for more than 3 seconds for once? I'm very serious. She had always been. Forget it. Lone Moon rolled his eyes at her out of habit, but a hint of a smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. This time let's forget about it. If you want to do good things, do it yourself. I don't care anymore. With that said, he threw a bag over. Xining caught it reflexively. When she opened it, she found that it was actually a bag full of immortal stones. Her eyes instantly widened. Father Nyo, are you going to provide for me? Pui. He glanced at her in disdain. Which person in this invincible sect isn't my mistress? Oh, that was true. Then this is. The sudden increase in benefits shocked her. Living expenses for these 2 months. I had an epiphany. The corner of his mouth could not help but rise. Just now, he had broken through the heart tribulation. The heavenly tribulation is coming soon. What kind of look is that? You allow your disciple to have epiphanies every day, but I can't? Give me back the immortal stones. Congratulations, Father Nyo, congratulations, Father Nyo. Father Nyo is indeed as blessed as the heavens, and your life is as long as the heavens. She clutched the bag tightly. Get lost. Chapter 155. Chef, son. Xining glanced at the table full of new food. Her mouth twitched. She looked at a certain seriously injured person. I think I just had lunch. Master, I Ching replied seriously, these are just pastries, they are not considered a proper meal. If Master doesn't like them, why don't I find some fruits? I didn't get many immortal fruits last time. There's only some left. Mystic Phoenix fruit, Flying Feather fruit, Exotic Fragrance fruit, Buddha flower fruit, and True Sand fruit. You eat first? As he spoke, he fished out a large sack from the storage bag on his side. Shining, there really wasn't much. Master, you don't like these? I Ching looked at her worriedly when she didn't move. I like them. Xinying's mouth twitched. But this was a little too much. She had already eaten more than 10 dishes during that meal. Adding this table full of food, she was a little full. And after he woke up, he seemed to be agitated by something. Apart from healing his wounds, he went into the kitchen and made all kinds of dishes for her 5 times a day. She really felt a little, oh yes, how many lightning strikes has Father Nyo had? She subconsciously squeezed the sack and asked. I Ching raised his head and looked into the distance. It was a patch of sky that was burning red. He lowered his head and counted before replying seriously, Master, your disciple has done some calculations. Together with the heavenly thunder just now, it's already the 84th heavenly thunder. 84. Shining had just taken a bite of the pastry. She turned back in shock. God's number, did he fail again? Wasn't it 81? Failed? I Ching was stunned for a moment. Then he understood that she was asking about the number. He hurriedly explained, it's not that the number of heavenly tribulations is wrong. But judging from the aura of the lightning, Lone Moon should have risen by 2 big realms. That's why he needs to experience 162 lightning strikes and 72 wildfire tribulations. After the heavenly tribulations, his cultivation should be able to directly reach exalted immortal. So he jumped 2 realms in an instant? It was as if she could see a certain person's tail curling up. Then how much longer? I've already chopped half of it. It'll be done in 7 days at most. 7 days. Xinying's eyes lit up. She stood up immediately and pointed at the table full of food. She looked at I Ching seriously and said, Chef, I've thought about it. I've been starving for so many days. Can you make some more food? Make it double or even triple. After he finished speaking, he took out the immortal stone pouch beside him and stuffed it into his hand. I have money. 2 months' worth, it was all spent. Yes, master. No problem, master. Yu Hong, who was just about to enter, the corner of her mouth twitched. She glanced at the fiery red sky in the distance and walked in. Sect Master. She suddenly understood why Elder Lone Moon was so keen on earning immortal stones. Yo, Little Red. Shining, who had completely let go of the food, turned around and waved her hand. There are pastries. Want some? I've already eaten. Thank you, sect leader. Yu Hong walked over and bowed to the 2 of them. Elder Lone Moon is going through a tribulation. There are 2 things that I don't know how to handle. That's why I'm here to report to Sect Master. Oh, what's the matter? Shining asked casually. It's like this. Just now, a disciple discovered that there was a sudden movement of immortal qi in the southwest area of the back mountain. Not only did it disperse the demonic qi nearby, but it also showed signs of solidifying. Yu Hong frowned and said worriedly, Something's wrong with the immortal qi? I Ching's expression darkened. As if thinking of something, he asked, Are there any traces of array formations or sorcery there? Yu Hong shook her head. I want to take a look too. I didn't find anything. I Ching's frown deepened. Could it be that someone had broken in? But Invincible Sect had always been surrounded by protective arrays. In addition, there was demonic qi all around. Who could have broken in? Master. He looked at the person beside him inquiringly. This matter is strange. Why don't we go and take a look? Oh. Father Nyo's absence was indeed troublesome. They still had to go out. Shining sighed and patted the pastries on her hands. Then she stood up slowly. Keep the pastries. We'll eat them when we come back. Yes. I Ching nodded. With a wave of his hand, the pastries on the table disappeared instantly. That's right. Shining was just about to leave when she suddenly remembered something. She said, Little Hong, have you asked Floaty to go and take a look? Yu Hong paused. Then she remembered that Shining was talking about Bitao. Not yet. That's right. Immortal Bitao had been in the immortal realm for a long time. You should know better. She quickly turned and said, I'll go and ask him now. Shining nodded. She stepped onto the flying sword that I Ching had summoned and flew with him to the back of the mountain. From afar, I Ching could feel the movement of immortal qi. It was indeed very thick. Moreover, it seemed to be concentrated on the flat land on the right. Now he could already see a faint white fog. I Ching's heart sank as he recalled what happened in the capital. Could it be that those people had found their way here so quickly? Did he beat them up too lightly the last time? There were already several disciples surrounding the area. When they saw the 2 of them, they all bowed. Master, do you see anything? I Ching looked at Shining. He did not sense anything special about the immortal chi. It seems like there's a hole? Shining was just about to answer when Yu Hong rushed over with Bitao. Great. Immortal. He subconsciously wanted to greet the two of them. When he saw the immortal chi, he was shocked. Isn't this the immortal ascension stage? It appeared so quickly. Immortal ascension stage. The group of disciples who had been recommended for direct ascension all looked confused. What? Fellow immortal floaty, have you seen this kind of special immortal chi before? I Ching asked seriously. Why do you call me floaty too? The corner of Bitao's mouth twitched. He took a deep breath and explained, of course. This immortal ascension stage is a sign that someone from the lower realm is undergoing tribulation and ascending. As long as that person passes the tribulation, the immortal chi will condense into an immortal ascension stage. It will send down a welcoming light to welcome the immortal from the lower realm into the immortal realm. I see. The surrounding disciples sighed. So it was not an enemy to be a sparring partner. What a pity. There are 3,000 worlds in the lower realm. That's why this immortal ascension stage is quite common in the immortal realm. Bitao continued, when everyone ascended, the immortal ascension stage appeared here as well. It was just that a great immortal sect descended and it was destroyed. From the looks of it. Bitao glanced at the immortal ascension stage that was taking shape. This person must have ascended from the Azure world. The Azure world had just become one of the 3,000 worlds. Although the location of the immortal ascension stage was uncertain, it was created here after all. There was a high chance that someone from the Azure world would appear here when they ascended. You're saying that the person who ascended is someone we know? I Ching understood what he meant. Very likely. Bitao nodded. They wondered who it was that ascended. They thought about the mighty beings who descended to the lower realm. If they were not mistaken, they should be from the 4 aristocratic families, right? Everyone looked at the immortal chi expectantly except for I Ching. No matter who it was, they were all little bastards who came to steal their master. He suddenly regretted suggesting that his master come here. Was it too late to go back now? Chapter 156. More and more immortal chi appeared. A moment later, the shape of a white platform could be seen. Lightning flashed in the middle. Just as the platform was about to take shape, the lightning suddenly became more violent and destroyed the platform that had taken so much effort to form. Ha! Bitao exclaimed. The lightning tribulation has increased. It looks like this person has brought something else with him. Was bringing something along with him to immortal ascension a standard practice in the Azure world? After the lightning faded, the scattered immortal chi began to gather again. After about 15 minutes, the immortal ascension stage finally took shape again. The lightning in the middle also disappeared. A beam of golden light of guidance shot into the sky from the center. It lit up half the sky. Not far away, the fiery red light from Lonman's heavenly tribulation complemented each other. In the next moment, a black figure flew out of the golden light of the immortal ascension stage at an extremely fast speed, heading straight for them. Just as it was about to land on the ground, it seemed to be exhausted. With a loud thud, it fell from the sky and landed on the ground a dozen meters away. The light of guidance and the immortal ascension stage disappeared as soon as he appeared. Everyone then saw that the figure that had appeared was a ball of black paste. Moreover, it was the charred kind. Its entire body was black like charcoal and its body was still emitting wisps of hot air. Instantly, the smell of roasted meat floated in the air. He seemed to have been struck too hard by the lightning tribulation. His entire body was curled up into a ball. His chest rose and fell violently. He took a few deep breaths and tried to stretch his limbs. He swayed as he tried to stand up. Everyone paused. After all, they were all people from the same realm. They exchanged a look and rushed forward to save him. Even Xin Ying subconsciously followed the crowd over. Before she reached the other party's side, she suddenly heard a monotonous, extremely familiar voice. Ding. Big Boss has been discovered. Urgent mission. Please kneel down in front of Big Boss and express your loyalty. Instantly, the black figure, who had just stood up with much difficulty, knelt down in front of her in a prostrating manner. Shining, I Ching, Bitao, everyone, why did he suddenly know who this person was when he greeted him with such a big bow? *CK. The black figure cursed. He rubbed his forehead and looked up. System, what the hell are you doing? Where is it this time? Holy shit. Shin. Was he dreaming? Why is this pervert here? Didn't he go missing? Shining raised her hand out of habit. Long time no see. What's his name again? Perfected Feng Ying. Yu Hong recognized the person in front of her. No. I should call you immortal friend Feng Ying now. Who would have thought that he would be the first person to ascend to the immortal world in the Azure world? Wasn't he a nascent soul cultivator when the invincible sect came to the upper world? How did you? Before Feng Ying could finish speaking, he suddenly opened his mouth and spat out a mouthful of blood. The already weak immortal qi in his body dissipated even faster. I Ching frowned and was about to step forward. Feng Ying. A woman's voice suddenly rang out. In an instant, a woman's shadow floated out from his body. Her back was facing everyone, and her words were filled with worry and self-blame. Why did you have to do this? I told you long ago this won't do. If you had listened to me and ignored me, wouldn't it have been better for you to ascend on your own? Little you. Feng Ying reached out and held the woman's hand. The corners of his mouth twitched, as if he wanted to smile at the woman in front of him. I'm fine. Aren't we up here now? How can you be fine? The woman became even more anxious. Tears welled up in her eyes. If not for the fact that you used all your immortal qi to protect my soul during the lightning tribulation just now, you wouldn't have. Didn't I tell you before? I have a secret treasure, the system. Feng Ying tried to persuade her again in a low voice. The blood at the corner of his mouth flowed down uncontrollably. The system won't let me die. We'll definitely have a way. Before he could finish his sentence, the familiar sound of the notification rang out. Ding. Detected that the host's life force is too low. Strong mission. Host, please kneel on the ground with your palms under your head. With your body bent forward, crawl towards the big boss and shout the healing spell. Grandma, save me. P.S. Please use a volume of at least 200 decibels to repeat 3 times. Shining, Feng Ying, for all. Flips table. Who are you trying to bluff at a time like this? You stupid system, you just want to suck up to me. Do you have to go crazy every time you see Shining? Grandma can't save you, Shining replied seriously. Whose grandma are you? Believe it or not, I'll really beat you up. Chef, you. Just as she was about to ask Chef to help take a look, the woman whose back was facing them suddenly trembled all over. She turned her head abruptly and looked at her in disbelief. Ha! She replied subconsciously. Only then did she realize that this girl looked a little familiar. Roasted chicken gal? Shining. It's really you? Her eyes reddened instantly. She glanced at the affectionate Feng Ying beside her, then, decisively, she flung his hand away with a smack, turned around and hugged Shining who was behind her. That's great, you're all right. You're really all right. You scared me to death. I Ching, Feng Ying, little bitch asterisk to Shining. What's going on? Because Feng Ying wanted to forcefully bring roasted chicken gal up, he had to endure double the lightning tribulation. Although he had the help of the system, he was still struck until he was charred on the outside and tender on the inside. Holding on to his last breath, he only managed to ascend the immortal ascension stage because he wanted to forcefully bring roasted chicken gal up. What's more, he gave most of his immortal qi to Qingyu during the lightning tribulation. That was why his injuries had not healed. As for why roasted chicken gal was with him, it was because of the sudden disappearance of invincible sect. In order to save Father Nyo, time was tight. What's more, the only person in charge, Lone Moon, was not awake. Thus, the master and disciple duo did not think to inform them. What's more, so many immortals descended to destroy the world. Everyone thought that the phenomenon of ascension was caused by those immortals. Even Rabbit did not know that they had ascended. The 4 aristocratic families searched for a long time but could not find any traces of them. They could only give up. After that, only Qingyu and Feng Ying were left to investigate. After a while, the two of them saw eye to eye. Roasted chicken gal's cultivation was high. She was already a soul formation cultivator. But she was a fiendish cultivator after all. The lightning tribulation was already heavier than that of ordinary cultivators. Thus, she had been suppressing her cultivation. In the end, she could not suppress it any longer. In the end, she did not transcend the tribulation. When Bing Jie became a traveling immortal, something happened. When Feng Ying arrived, it was already too late. Her bones were completely destroyed. She was so badly injured that she could only appear in the form of a spirit body. Feng Ying had decided to ascend to the immortal world to find a way to save her. Oh yes. She suddenly remembered something. Little Hong, didn't you say that 2 things happened? What's the other thing? It's not a big deal. There are 2 people at the foot of the mountain asking to see Sect Master, Yu Hong replied. Oh. Shining did not mind. She continued to look at Bitao and Feng Ying, who were still recuperating. Hopefully they were all right. At the foot of the mountain. The little animal celestial emperor duo. They had been standing at the foot of the mountain for almost half a month. Why had the exalted goddess not summoned them? Was she angry? She definitely was. Just because she was late by 2 days. Sob sob sob. What should they do? They were doomed. The 2 of them were trembling. Chapter 157. It took Bitao 7 whole days to repair Feng Ying's meridians. His body, which had been charred black, finally regained some color and became much more alert. Bitao wiped the sweat from his forehead and walked out. The moment he stepped out of the door, he saw a few people in the yard. Although they said they were waiting, they had actually been eating for a few days. Weren't they supposed to be acquaintances? Why did it seem like he was the only one who was worried? Sect Master. Bitao sighed and stepped forward. I've already helped him repair his meridians, but the lightning tribulation has damaged his foundation. I can't help him recover with my current cultivation level. He needs to be nursed back to health. He was only a mystic immortal and had just ascended. Only an exalted immortal would be able to repair his damaged foundation. Oh, thank you. Shining nodded and took a bite of the fruit in her hand. Then she turned to look at Feng Ying. The next moment, the familiar notification sounded again. Ding. Detected that the host's bodily functions have recovered by 88%. Mission: gratitude is a traditional virtue. Please thank the host for saving his life within 1 minute. Feng Ying stumbled and almost fell to his knees again. He steadied himself and cursed the system tens of thousands of times in his heart. He ignored the voice in his head. He turned to Bitao and cupped his fists. Thank you, fellow immortal Bitao, for your help. I will repay you in the future. Don't stand on ceremony, fellow immortal. Bitao hurriedly stopped. I'm just following the sect master's orders. Feng Ying turned and walked over quickly. He walked past Shining and held Qichingyu's hand. Looking at her affectionately, he said, Little Yu, did I scare you? I'm sorry to have made you worry, but I'm fine now. Qichingyu's hand paused. Actually, she was not that worried. After all, Shining had been found. As long as you're fine. Thank goodness we met, Shining, otherwise She did not continue. She looked at Shining gratefully. Feng Ying reluctantly squeezed out 2 words. Thank you. You're welcome, baby. She did not do anything anyway. The corner of Feng Ying's mouth twitched. Who's the baby? Ding. Host, baby reading data. Do you want a display? He hated this parenting system. Tower Master Feng. Yiqing, who was at the side, stepped forward. Intentionally or unintentionally, he stood between Tower Master Feng and Shining. You're the crazy Tower Master, your whole family are crazy Tower Masters. How many times have I said it? It's Tower Mastering. Let's talk about her. What are your plans? Yiqing glanced at Qichinyu, who was beside him. He could not tell anything from her spirit body. Since Feng Ying had decided to bring her to the upper realm, it was impossible for her to remain a spiritual body forever. Feng Ying frowned and exchanged a glance with Qichinyu. Seeing her nod, he said, Back then I let little Yu's spirit body leave her body because I wanted to save her. But for some reason her spirit can't return to her body. He formed a hand seal, closed his eyes and tapped on his forehead. Instantly a white light flashed. He waved his hand at the ground next to him and a red figure lay on the ground. It was roasted chicken gal's body. Ding. Item has been successfully extracted from the system warehouse. That position was, you kept her body in your own consciousness. Bitao was shocked. He looked at Feng Ying as if he were an idiot. The consciousness was an important place. It was like a second soul. Any strange aura that entered the consciousness would cause unbearable pain. No. Feng Ying shook his head and turned to look at Shining, but he did not explain. It was indeed not the consciousness. He was just living in the system and using the spirit chi in the consciousness to nourish little Yu's body. Floaty, take a look at the situation? Shining urged, changing the subject. Bitao stepped forward and used his immortal chi to check. The more he looked, the deeper his frown became. He turned back to look at the worried Feng Ying and sighed. Her body, meridians, elixir field, and divine perception have all been destroyed by the lightning. Although it's troublesome, it's not impossible to repair it. She just needed to nourish her body. Feng Ying was overjoyed. Bitao continued. As for why her spirit body can't return to her body, I can't tell. As soon as he finished speaking, Feng Ying and Roasted Chicken Gal's expressions darkened. So even the immortal realm couldn't do anything? Of course, it could also be because my cultivation level is too low, Bitao added. The two of them still did not look any better. Why don't we wait for Father Nyo to come and take a look? Shining suggested. Chef's injuries could not be healed. Father Nyo might have a way. Nyo. Feng Ying stared blankly for a moment before realizing who she was talking about. He was elated. Compared to the infuriating Shining, he obviously had a better impression of his former partner. Brother Lone Moon has also ascended to the upper world. What about me? As they spoke, Lone Moon, who had just finished his tribulation, walked in. He seemed to be in a good mood. Hey Father Nyo. Shining waved her hand. She had just used up all her immortal stones. She was just about to greet him when Feng Ying walked over. Brother Nyo, you're finally here. Who's your brother Nyo? Lone Moon frowned. He scanned the person in front of him, who smelled burnt. Only then did he recognize him. Tower Master Ying, you've ascended? The strange immortal chi that Lone Moon felt when he was undergoing the tribulation was him. He turned and glared at Shining. His expression said, you're freaking picking people up to eat your rice again. And they're all poor. Feng Ying did not sense his disdain at all. He looked like he had found a friend. Nyo? No, brother Lone Moon, please save little you. What little you? Lone Moon turned and saw Chi-Ching-Yu beside him. Holy shit. Keep glaring at a certain foodie. You've picked up two at once. I've decided. I'll deduct your food allowance. Fellow immortal Bitao said that your cultivation level is the highest. Only you can save her now. With that said, he was about to kneel down. He liked to hear that. Tower Master Ying, don't stand on ceremony. Lone Moon held him up. Tell me what's going on first. On account of your good bootlicking. Although I'm indeed the highest cultivation level here, I have to know what's going on, right? The injured I Ching. Feng Ying explained the situation again. Lone Moon checked Roasted Chicken Gal on the ground. After a while, he shook his head and said, there's nothing I can do. Feng Ying's face paled. I don't know much about spirit bodies. I've never seen her in this state before. Lone Moon thought for a while. After a while he said, but I heard that there's an immortal herb called dried half moon. It can nourish spirit bodies. Might be useful. Really? Feng Ying was overjoyed. He was about to ask where the immortal herb was. Dried half moon. Bitao suddenly exclaimed. That's a supreme grade immortal herb. It only grows in the heavens beyond heaven. That's the territory of the 10 celestial emperors. Ordinary immortals can't see this kind of immortal herb. What's more, things that were beneficial to spirit bodies were also beneficial to divine perception. This kind of immortal herb was a treasure. You're tuning in to the Han Lee's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.